Hi guys, tonight we drift quietly into the world of the Russian winter night. The sun is sinking, the air is turning cold. It feels like ice against your cheeks. The wind is coming off the fields like a cold river, finding every gap in your clothes. You can hear the dry grass snapping under your boots. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you want to let me know where you are listening from and what time it is where you are. I always love seeing those little snapshots of the world. Now dim the lights and let the story begin. You are standing in the middle of a very large room. The walls are covered in gold paint that glows in the soft light. The floor under your feet is made of dark wood. It is so shiny and clean that you can see the light of the candles dancing on the surface. High above you, there are big lights hanging from the ceiling. They are made of glass that looks like frozen water. These are called chandeliers. They hold hundreds of small candles. Each candle has a tiny flame. The flames move back and forth very slowly, making long shadows on the walls. Outside the tall windows, the world is changing. The sun has gone down. The sky is a very deep blue, almost black. You can see the snow falling. It is not a heavy snow, but the wind is blowing it in circles. The wind makes a soft whistling sound as it hits the glass. It sounds like someone is whispering far away. You know that out there, it is very, very cold. People say it is minus 40 degrees. That is a kind of cold that most people never feel. It is a cold that can freeze a drop of water before it hits the ground. But inside the palace, you are safe. You are warm. You are getting ready for the New Year sleigh ride. This is a very old tradition for the rich families of Russia. It is a way to celebrate the night and the snow. But to go outside, you must prepare. You cannot just walk out in your normal clothes. The winter is a strong enemy, and you must be clever to stay warm. You look at the big stone stove in the corner of the room. It is as tall as the ceiling. It is made of white tiles with blue flowers painted on them. Inside, big logs of birch wood are burning. You can smell the wood. It is a dry, sweet smell. It is the smell of a Russian home in the winter. A servant comes into the room. He is part of the night shift. His job is to make sure the fires never go out and the family is ready for the night. He moves very quietly. He does not speak. He carries a heavy coat made of fur. He helps you put it on. This coat is very heavy. It is made of velvet on the outside. The velvet is the color of the dark night sky. On the inside, it is lined with sable fur. Sable is a small animal that lives in the deep forests. Its fur is very thick and very soft. It is the warmest thing in the world. When you put the coat on, you feel like you are being hugged by a large, warm animal. Now, you must protect your feet. You sit down on a soft chair. The servant brings you your boots. These are not normal boots made of leather. These are called valenki. They are made of wool that has been pressed down until it is very hard and thick. They have no zips and no laces. They are just one solid piece of grey felt. They look simple, but they are very special. They are the only boots that can keep your toes from freezing in the deep snow. You slide your feet into them. They feel scratchy at first, but then you feel the heat of your own body staying inside. It is a cozy feeling. You look at your hands. You put on 2 pairs of gloves. The first pair is made of thin silk. This keeps the air off your skin. The second pair is made of thick wool and fur. Your hands feel big and heavy now. You can hardly move your fingers, but that is okay. You do not need to do much with your hands tonight. You only need to keep them warm. In the 1800s, the Russian nobility loved these nights more than anything. They would spend thousands of rubles, which was their money, to make sure their sleighs and clothes were the best. It was a way to show that they were not afraid of the dark or the ice. They turned the scary winter into a beautiful party. You are part of that history now. You are following in their footsteps. You walk toward the big door at the end of the hall. Your heavy boots make a dull sound on the floor. Thump, thump, thump. The palace is very quiet. Most of the people are already sleeping in their beds, under thick blankets. But you are part of the night. You are going where the air is sharp and the stars are bright. You stop for a moment by a small table. There is a silver bowl with some dried fruit and nuts. You take a small piece of dried apple. It is sweet and chewy. This little bit of food gives you a tiny bit of energy. You will need it. Staying warm in the cold takes a lot of work for your body. Your heart has to pump blood to your fingers and toes to keep them alive. You look at a painting on the wall. It shows a forest in the winter. The trees are covered in so much snow they look like white ghosts. This is where you are going. You are going into the white silence. You feel a little bit of excitement in your chest. It is a quiet kind of excitement. It makes you feel very awake, even though it is late at night. The servant opens the big wooden door for you. As soon as the door opens, you feel a change. A tiny bit of cold air reaches inside. It is very thin and sharp. It smells like clean ice and frozen pine trees. It is different from the warm, dusty air of the palace. It smells fresh. You take a deep breath. The cold air stings the inside of your nose. It is a strange feeling, but you like it. It reminds you that you are alive. You see the stone steps leading down to the ground. They have been swept, but a new layer of white dust is already covering them. The light from the hallway shines out onto the snow. It makes the snow look like millions of tiny diamonds. Each little flake of snow catches the light and sparkles. You step out onto the porch. The wind is stronger here. It tries to pull at your heavy fur coat, but the coat is too heavy to move. You feel the weight of the sable fur pressing against your shoulders. It is a good weight. It makes you feel strong. You look out into the darkness. You cannot see very far, but you can see the glow of lanterns moving in the distance. Those are the stables. That is where the horses are waiting for you. You stand still for a minute. You want to listen to the night. It is very quiet. You can hear the sound of your own breathing. Your breath looks like a small white cloud in front of your face. It drifts away into the dark. You hear a distant sound. It is a low, musical ringing. Tinkle, tinkle, tinkle. It is the sound of silver bells. The horses are being moved. The ride is almost ready to start. The snow under your boots makes a crunching sound. It is a dry sound, like breaking a cracker. This happens when the snow is very, very cold. It does not melt under your feet. It just snaps. You walk down the steps slowly. You have to be careful. The stone is slippery. You hold onto the cold metal rail. Your gloves protect your skin from the freezing iron. You are now standing on the ground. The palace looks huge from down here. It is a mountain of stone and gold. The yellow light from the windows looks warm and inviting. But you are looking away from the palace. You are looking toward the black trees and the white fields. You are ready to see what the night holds. You are ready to feel the speed of the horses and the bite of the wind. You take one more deep breath. The air is so cold now that you can feel it in your teeth. You pull your fur collar up higher around your neck. The soft fur touches your ears. You are tucked away in your own little world of wool and sable. You begin to walk toward the lights of the stables. The snow is getting deeper, but your boots are strong. You are moving forward into the heart of the Russian winter. As you walk across the snow, you feel the weight of everything you are wearing. It is a strange feeling to have so many things on your body. Back inside the palace, before you stepped out into the dark, the process of getting dressed was slow and careful. You had to build a wall of cloth between your skin and the world outside. It is like building a small, warm house that you carry with you. Every layer has a job to do. Every piece of fabric is a shield against the freezing air. The very first layer against your skin is a long shirt made of fine white linen. Linen is a fabric made from the stalks of a plant. It is very light and feels cool at first, but it is important because it lets your skin breathe. If you sweat under all your heavy furs, the sweat can turn cold and make you freeze. The linen keeps you dry. This shirt is long, reaching down to your knees. It is soft and has been washed many times until it feels like a second skin. You can feel the smoothness of it as you move your arms. It is the foundation of your warmth. Over the linen shirt, you have a tunic made of soft wool. This is called a ruboshka. It is a deep red color, the color of a dark berry. The wool is a bit thicker and starts to trap the heat coming off your body. In the 1800s, Russian people knew that trapped air is what keeps you warm. Each layer of cloth creates a little pocket of air. Your body heats that air up, and the clothes keep it from escaping. It is like having a personal heater wrapped around you. You feel the wool pressing against your chest. It is a comforting, heavy feeling. Next, you have your trousers. They are also made of thick wool, but they are tucked into your tall Valenki boots. This is important so that no snow can get inside. If even a tiny bit of snow touches your skin, it will melt and then turn to ice. You have tied a long, woven belt around your waist. This is a micro-history detail that everyone in Russia used, from the poorest farmer to the richest prince. This belt is called a poyas. It is made of many different colors of thread blue, green, and gold ball twisted together. It is not just for looks. The poyas is tied very tight to hold all your shirts close to your body. It keeps the warm air from drifting up and out of your collar. You can feel the belt firm against your stomach. It makes you feel tucked in and safe. On top of the wool tunic, you are wearing a waistcoat. A waistcoat is like a jacket with no sleeves. It is made of quilted silk and filled with soft bird feathers. These feathers are very light, but they are very good at holding heat. This layer is what keeps your heart and your lungs warm. When you breathe in the cold night air, your chest stays hot because of these tiny feathers. You can feel the puffiness of the waistcoat under your arms. It makes you feel a bit wider than usual, like a large, sturdy tree trunk. Now comes the biggest layer of all. This is your heavy outer coat, known as a shuba. In Russia, a shuba is more than just a coat. It is a way of life. Yours is made of heavy black wool on the outside, so it does not get ruined by the snow. But the inside is lined with the thick, dark fur of a bear. This fur is very dense. If you push your fingers into it, they disappear completely. The fur creates a deep forest of hair that the wind cannot blow through. The coat reaches all the way down to your ankles. It is so heavy that it takes effort to move your legs, but that weight is what keeps the -40-degree wind away. A historical fact about these coats is that they were often passed down from fathers to sons for many years. A good fur coat was worth as much as a small house. People took great care of them, brushing the fur and keeping them in boxes made of cedar wood. The smell of the cedar still lingers on the fur. It is a sharp, woody smell that reminds you of a quiet forest in the autumn. As you walk, you can smell the cedar and the faint scent of the wood smoke from the palace. You stop walking for a moment. You are halfway between the palace and the stables. Everything is silent. You stand perfectly still in the middle of the white snow. The only sound is the very soft hiss of the wind moving over the frozen ground. You look down at your gloved hands. They look huge in the moonlight. You feel like a padded doll, wrapped in so many layers that you could fall over and not feel a thing. This is the secret of the night shift in Russia. To survive the night, you must become something more than a person. You must become a mountain of wool and fur. In this moment of silence, you reflect on how quiet the world feels. The cold has a way of swallowing sound. In the summer, you might hear insects or birds or the rustle of leaves. But in the winter, the trees are asleep. The ground is hard like stone. The air is so thin and cold that sound doesn't seem to travel as far. It is just you and your breath. You watch the white mist come out of your mouth. It hangs in the air for a second, a tiny cloud of your own warmth, before the wind brushes it away. It is a beautiful, lonely sight. You feel a glow of heat on your skin, even though the air around you is cold enough to freeze water in seconds. You are sweating just a little bit. This is good. It means your house of clothes is working. Your body is afire, and your clothes are the walls keeping the heat in. You feel a sense of pride. You are braving the great Russian winter, and you are winning. You are not cold. You are cozy in the middle of a frozen world. You start to move again. The heavy fabric of your shuba rubs against itself. Swish, swish, swish. It is a rhythmic, calming sound. Each step takes a little bit of energy, but you have plenty of that. You feel the thickness of the wool socks inside your valenki. Your toes are warm and can move freely. The wool is scratchy, but it is a good scratch. It reminds you that you are protected. You look ahead and see the yellow glow of the stable lanterns getting closer. The light looks soft and blurry through the falling snow. You can see the steam rising from the stable roof. Inside, there are living things, horses and men, who are also creating heat. You are heading toward that warmth. But for now, you enjoy being out here in the dark. You enjoy being a secret bundle of warmth moving through the ice. The wind picks up for a second. It blows a cloud of fine, white snow off the ground. The snow hits your coat and slides right off. It cannot find a way in. You pull the fur collar of your coat a little tighter. The fur is soft against your chin. It feels like a velvet ribbon. You are ready to reach the horses. You are ready to see the sleigh. Your journey into the night is just beginning, and you are dressed for the adventure. The walk to the stables is not long, but in this kind of cold, every step feels like a small journey. The snow is now up to your shins. It is light and powdery, like white flour. With every movement, you kick up a small cloud of ice that glows in the moonlight. You are leaving the bright, golden windows of the palace behind. The house looks like a giant lantern sitting on a hill of salt. The farther you walk, the more the silence of the night takes over. The only thing you can hear is the crunch of your boots and the slow, heavy thud of your heart. As you get closer to the stables, the air begins to change. The sharp, clean smell of the frozen forest starts to mix with something else. It is a warm smell. It is the smell of dry hay, of old wood, and of large, resting animals. This is a smell that has not changed for hundreds of years. It is the smell of the night shift at work. You can smell the birch tar. In Russia, people used a special oil made from birch bark called degt. They rubbed it into the leather of the horse harnesses and the boots of the workers. It has a very strong, smoky scent, like a campfire that has been put out with water. This oil was very important because it kept the leather soft. Without it, the freezing air would make the leather turn as hard as stone, and it would snap like a dry twig. You see the stable building now. It is a long, low house made of thick pine logs. The logs are dark brown, almost black, and they are held together with dried moss stuffed into the gaps. The roof is heavy with a thick hat of snow. Small lanterns hang from the eaves, the edges of the roof. The light they give off is a deep, warm orange. It does not travel far into the dark, but it marks the way like small stars fallen to the ground. You see a man standing by the door. He is a stable hand. He has been awake all night, making sure the horses are fed and the sleigh is ready. He wears a hat made of sheepskin that covers his ears. When he sees you, he bows his head slowly. He does not speak. In the deep cold, people do not like to talk much. Talking lets the warm air out of your lungs and lets the frost in. You reach the door of the stable and pull it open. The hinges make a long, low groan. As soon as the door opens, a wave of warmth hits you. It is not the dry, toasted heat of the palace stove. This is a living heat. It is thick and damp. It smells of the horses and the grain they eat. In the 1800s, the stables were often the warmest places on a big estate. A single horse creates as much heat as a small heater. And when you have 20 or 30 horses in one room, the air stays well above freezing, even when it is minus 40 degrees outside. It is a safe place. You step inside and close the heavy door behind you. For a moment, you just stand there. This is your moment of reflection. The stable is dim, lit only by a few oil lamps hanging from the beams. You look down the long row of wooden stalls. In each one, a large horse is standing. You can see the steam rising off their backs in the cool air. It looks like thin white smoke. The horses are quiet. Some are slowly chewing on hay. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Others are resting their heads on the wooden rails, their large eyes watching you move. You watch the way their sides move in and out as they breathe. Each breath creates a big puff of steam from their noses. It is a very peaceful sight. The world outside is frozen and dangerous, but in here, life is slow and warm. You walk slowly down the center path. The floor is covered in clean, golden straw. It feels soft under your heavy Valinki boots. You see the stable master at the end of the hall. He is a man who spent his whole life with these animals. He knows each horse by its name and the sound of its neigh. He is holding a wooden bucket. He is giving the horses a special treat before the long ride. He gives them a small piece of bread rubbed with a tiny bit of salt. Horses love the taste of salt in the winter. It helps them stay strong for the work ahead. A historical fact about these Russian stables is how they were built to protect the horses' lungs. The ceilings were kept very high so the damp air could rise up and away from the animals. If the air stayed too close to the floor, the horses would get sick. The people who looked after these horses were very clever. They knew that a horse was the most valuable thing a person could own in the winter. Without the horses, you were trapped. You could not get food, you could not visit neighbors, and you could not escape the deep snow. The horses were the heartbeat of the Russian winter. You stop by a large grey horse. This is one of the Orlov trotters. They are a special breed of Russian horse, famous for being very fast and very tough. They have thick necks and long, powerful legs. This horse reaches out and nuffles your shoulder with its nose. Its nose is soft like velvet and very warm. You can feel the heat of its breath through your thick fur coat. You reach out a gloved hand and pat its neck. The hair is thick and coarse. Under the hair, you can feel the hard, strong muscles of the animal. This horse is ready to run. It does not fear the cold. It was born for this. You look at the harness hanging on the wall nearby. This is a micro-history detail of the Russian knight. The harness has many small silver bells attached to the leather. These are not just for decoration. In the middle of a snowstorm, you cannot see very far. The bells tell other people that a sleigh is coming. They also help the driver know how the horses are feeling. If the bells ring with a fast, happy beat, the horses are moving well. If the bells sound slow and heavy, the horses are getting tired. The stable master begins to lift the harness. The bells make a beautiful, clear sound, jingle, tinkle, ring. The sound bounces off the wooden walls and fills the quiet stable. You follow the stable master toward the back of the building. The air gets a little cooler here because the big double doors are slightly open. Beyond those doors, you can see the sleigh. It is waiting for you in the snow. It looks like a beautiful black shell sitting on silver blades. You feel a small shiver of excitement. You are leaving the safety of the warm stable and going back out into the bite of the night. But you are not afraid. You have your furs, you have your boots, and you have these powerful horses to carry you. The stable master leads 3 horses out toward the sleigh. Their hooves make a muffled drumming sound on the straw, and then a sharp clack as they step onto the frozen ground outside. You watch them go. You take one last look at the quiet, dim stable. You look at the lanterns swinging gently in the draft. You look at the other horses still resting in their stalls. They will stay here, safe and warm, while you go out into the white world. You pull your hat down lower. You check the buttons on your coat one last time. You are ready to step back into the -40-degree wind. You are ready to meet the driver and climb into the sleigh. The smell of the horses stays with you, a warm memory of the stable that you will carry into the cold. You walk toward the open doors, and the silver bells ring out again, calling you into the dark. You step out from the warm stable and back into the bite of the night. The air is so cold it feels like a thin sheet of glass against your skin, but your eyes are not on the sky or the trees. They are fixed on the beautiful machine waiting for you on the snow. This is the triple horse sleigh, known in Russia as the Troika. It is not just a carriage with runners instead of wheels. It is a work of art, built to fly over the ice. In the moonlight, it looks like a large, dark bird resting on the white ground. The body of the sleigh is made of strong oak wood. It has been painted with many coats of black lacquer, which is a kind of very shiny paint. It is so smooth and shiny that you can see the reflection of the stars in the side of the sleigh. Along the edges, there are patterns painted in bright gold and deep red. These patterns look like vines and flowers from a summer garden, a small memory of warmth in the middle of the frozen world. The wood is curved and elegant, like the body of a fine violin. It looks light, but you know it is strong enough to carry you across miles of deep snow. Under the wooden body are the runners. These are the long, thin blades that let the sleigh glide. They are made of heavy iron, polished until they shine like silver. They are very long, curving up at the front like the toes of a giant's boot. These runners are the most important part of the sleigh. If they were flat, they would get stuck in the soft snow. Because they are thin and curved, they slice through the ice and float on top of the powder. You can see a tiny bit of frost forming on the metal. It looks like white lace. Now, you look at the horses. There are 3 of them, and they are a magnificent sight. This way of using 3 horses is a very special Russian tradition. No other country in the world used horses quite like this. The horse in the middle is the largest. He's called the carriage, or the leader. He's a tall, strong horse with a thick neck and a long, flowing mane. He's the one who does most of the heavy work. He stays in a steady trot, which is a fast, rhythmic walk. He's the anchor for the whole team. The 2 horses on the sides are different. They are called the pristyazny. These horses are trained to run in a gallop, which is a very fast run. But here is the amazing part. They are trained to run with their heads turned away from the middle horse. Their bodies lean outward, away from the center of the sleigh. This looks very beautiful, like a fan opening up across the snow. It also serves a purpose. Having the side horses lean out helps the sleigh stay steady when it goes around corners. It keeps the whole thing from tipping over on the slippery ice. A historical fact about the Troika is that it was once the fastest way to travel in the world before the invention of the steam train. A good team of horses could pull a sleigh at 30 miles an hour for a long time. In the 1800s, that felt like flying. People loved the speed. They loved the feeling of the wind rushing past them and the sound of the horses' hooves drumming on the frozen earth. It was the sports car of the Russian winter. You notice a very special piece of wood arching over the middle horse's neck. This is a micro-history detail called a duga. It is a large, heavy piece of wood bent into the shape of a bow. The duga is painted with bright colors, yellows, reds, and blues. It is not just there to look pretty. The duga is what holds the harness together. It acts like a spring, soaking up the bumps of the road so the horse does not get hurt. Hanging from the very top of the dugar is a large silver bell. There are also many smaller bells, called bubinchiki, tied to the leather straps of the harness. Even though the horses are standing still, the bells make a tiny, shivering sound, ting, tinkle, click. It is a very delicate sound, like ice cubes hitting each other in a glass. You walk closer to the sleigh. The smell of the lacquer paint is fresh and sharp. It mixes with the smell of the horses and the cold air. You see the seat where you will sit. It is a deep, wide bench covered in soft green velvet. The velvet feels cool and smooth to the touch. The back of the seat is high to protect you from the wind. There are thick carpets on the floor of the sleigh to keep the cold from coming up through the wood. Everything has been thought of. Every detail is meant to keep you safe and comfortable, while the world around you is frozen solid. You stand for a moment of reflection, looking at the horse's breath. In the moonlight, the steam from their noses looks like thick, white ribbons. It drifts up and tangles in their manes. The horses are very quiet. They are not stamping their feet or acting restless. They are saving their energy. They know that once they start, they will be running for a long time through the dark. You look at their large, dark eyes. They look calm and brave. There is a deep bond between a Russian driver and his horses. They trust each other to find the way through the snow, even when the path is hidden. The silence of the night is very deep here. The palace is behind you, and the forest is in front of you. You can hear the wind moving through the bare branches of the trees. It sounds like a long, low sigh. You look at the silver runners of the sleigh again. They are resting on the snow, waiting to move. You think about all the people who have stood here before you 100 years ago. They felt the same cold. They saw the same moonlight on the ice. They felt the same mix of fear and excitement before the big ride. You see the driver coming toward the sleigh. He is a big man, made even bigger by his many coats. He walks with a heavy, steady step. He looks at the horses and touches the dugar. He checks the bells to make sure they are tied tight. He is the captain of this wooden ship. He looks at you and gives a small nod. It is time. The horses sense his arrival and toss their heads. The silver bells ring out loudly now, a clear and happy sound that breaks the silence of the night. Clang, ring, jingle. You feel a sense of wonder. This sleigh is a simple thing of wood and iron, but it is also a miracle of human cleverness. It is how people conquered the winter. Instead of staying inside and hiding from the frost, they built these beautiful machines to go out and meet it. They turned the cold into a playground. You reach out and touch the side of the sleigh. The wood is freezing, but it feels solid and real. You are ready to climb in. You are ready to leave the ground behind and glide across the white sea of the Russian night. The journey is truly beginning now, and you can feel the power of the three horses waiting for your word. The man who will lead you into the dark is now standing right in front of you. In the low light of the stable lanterns, he looks like a giant made of wool and fur. This is your driver. In Russia, a man like this is often called a cooker. He's the master of the horses and the king of the winter roads. He does not look like the thin, tidy servants inside the palace. He is a big man with broad shoulders and hands that look as strong as iron. He has spent his whole life working the night shift on the ice. He knows the wind like a brother, and he understands the snow better than anyone else. As he walks toward you, you hear the heavy, slow rhythm of his boots. Crunch, crunch, crunch. He moves with a steady pace, never rushing. In the deep cold, rushing makes you breathe too hard, and breathing too hard can hurt your lungs. He stops a few feet away from you and gives a short, deep bow. When he lifts his head, you see his face. It is a kind face, but it is worn by the weather. His skin is the color of old leather, tanned by the sun of the summer and toughened by the frost of the winter. The most amazing thing about him is his beard. It is a long, thick beard that reaches down to his chest. Tonight, the beard is not its usual brown color. It is completely white. This is not because he is old, but because of the frost breath. As he breathes out into the -40-degree air, the moisture from his mouth turns instantly into ice. The ice has trapped itself in the hairs of his beard, creating thousands of tiny, sparkling icicles. It looks like he has grown a beard of silver glass. When he moves his head, you can hear a very faint clinking sound as the ice crystals rub together. He is wearing a very special piece of clothing that is a micro-history detail of the Russian knight. Around his thick waist, over his heavy coat, he has wrapped a sash called a kushak. A kushak is a very long piece of woven cloth, often 5 or 6 meters long. He has wrapped it around and around his body until it forms a wide, firm band. It is a bright emerald green, which stands out against his dark coat. This belt is not just for decoration. It helps keep his back straight during the long hours of sitting on the sleigh. It also keeps his internal organs warm by adding another thick layer of cloth over his stomach. He reaches down and adjusts the knot, his large gloved hands moving with great care. A historical fact about these Russian drivers is that they were some of the most respected workers in the country. A good driver was famous. People would ask for them by name. They were known for their eye, the ability to see the path even when a blizzard made the world look like a bowl of milk. They did not use maps. They used the shape of the trees, the feel of the wind against their left cheek, and the way the horses tilted their ears. To lose a driver in the winter was to lose your way home. They were the true guardians of the night. The driver looks at you with his bright blue eyes and begins to speak. His voice is deep and gravelly, like stones rubbing together at the bottom of a river. He tells you about the path you are about to take. He calls it the icy ribbon. This is a path that follows the curve of the frozen river. He warns you that the path is tricky tonight. The wind has been blowing from the north, which means there are snow waves or drifts across the track. These drifts look like solid ground, but they are soft and can trap a horse's leg if the driver is not careful. He points a thick finger toward the dark line of the forest. The trees are heavy tonight, he says softly. He explains that the snow is sitting thick on the pine branches. Sometimes, if the wind hits them just right, a whole branch will dump its snow all at once. It creates a white cloud that can blind the horses for a few seconds. He tells you that he will keep the horses at a steady pace through the woods, and only let them fly once you reach the open meadows. You listen to his words and feel a deep sense of safety. This man knows every rock and every turn. He knows where the ice is thick enough to hold the sleigh, and where it might be thin near the bubbling springs. You both stand in silence for a moment. This is your moment of reflection. You look at the driver, and then you look at the vast, dark world behind him. You realize that out here, titles and money do not matter. The palace and its gold do not matter. The only thing that matters is the skill of this man and the strength of the 3 horses. You feel a small, quiet respect for the people who work the night shift, while the nobility sleeps in their soft beds. Men like this driver are out in the -40-degree wind, making sure the world keeps moving. The silence is heavy and cold, broken only by the occasional snort of a horse or the distant crack of a frozen tree limb snapping under the weight of the ice. The driver turns back to the sleigh. He checks the harness one last time. He runs his hand over the leather straps, feeling for any cracks or weak spots. He checks the duga, the big wooden arch over the middle horse, to make sure the silver bell is hanging straight. Everything must be perfect. On the icy ribbon, there is no room for mistakes. If a strap breaks at high speed, the sleigh could spin out of control. But the driver is happy with what he sees. He pats the neck of the lead horse, whispered a few words in its ear that you cannot hear. The horse tosses its head, and the bells ring out with a clear, sharp tone. He looks back at you and nods toward the seat of the sleigh. "It is time to hide from the wind," he says. He moves to the front of the sleigh and climbs up onto his high wooden bench. This bench is called the causley. It is not padded or soft like your seat. It is hardwood, but he sits on it with pride. He gathers the long leather reins in his hands. He holds them firmly but gently. He does not need a whip. These horses run for the sound of his voice and the feel of his hands. You watch him sit there, a dark shadow against the white snow. He looks like a part of the sleigh itself, a statue carved from wood and fur. He's ready to face the wind. He's ready to guide you through the snow waves and under the heavy trees. You feel the cold creeping into your boots now, telling you that it is time to stop standing and start moving. The driver is waiting. The horses are waiting. The icy ribbon is waiting for the first mark of your silver runners. You move toward the side of the sleigh, ready to step into the green velvet world of the carriage, knowing that the best hands in Russia are holding the reins. You lift your foot and step into the sleigh. It is a small step, but it feels like moving from one world into another. The snow on your boots makes a soft crunching sound against the metal edge before you sink into the thick carpet on the floor. The green velvet seat is wide and deep. As you sit down, you feel the softness of the padding. It is much more comfortable than the hard chairs in the palace. The high back of the sleigh wraps around your shoulders like a giant wooden cradle. Even though you are still outside in the -40-degree night, you already feel a little bit more protected. The driver reaches back and hands you the blankets. These are not the thin blankets you might have on your bed at home. These are heavy, thick rugs made from the fur of great brown bears. In the 1800s, bear fur was the most important thing for anyone traveling in a sleigh. A historical fact about these furs is that they were picked because bear hair is very oily. This oil helps the fur stay dry. If the snow falls on the blanket and melts a little, the water does not soak in. It just stays on the surface or rolls off. This keeps the person underneath perfectly dry and warm, no matter how long the ride lasts. You take the first fur rug and pull it over your lap. It is very heavy. It feels like a large, friendly weight pressing down on your legs. You tuck the edges under your thighs and around your sides. You want to make sure there are no gaps where the cold air can crawl in. The fur is dark brown and very thick. When you run your gloved hand over it, the hair feels coarse, but also very soft at the same time. It smells like a mixture of old woods, dried grass, and the cedar boxes where it was stored during the summer. It is a very old smell, a smell that makes you feel safe and grounded. Next, you find a small, heavy object at your feet. This is a micro-history detail of the Russian night. It is a large soapstone that has been sitting near the palace fire for hours. It is wrapped in 3 layers of thick, grey wool. In Russia, these were called foot warmers. The stone holds the heat for a very long time. You slide your Valenki boots against the stone. Even through the thick felt of your boots, you can feel the steady, glowing warmth. It feels like a small sun is sitting at the bottom of the sleigh. This heat will travel up from your feet, through your legs, and keep your whole body feeling cozy while the wind blows above you. You pick up the second bear fur. This one is even larger than the first. You pull it all the way up to your chest. You are now buried in a nest of fur and wool. Only your head and your shoulders are sticking out. You feel like a small bird in a very deep, warm nest. The weight of the furs is actually quite relaxing. It keeps you still and tells your body that it is time to rest. You can feel the heat from the soapstone and the heat from your own body building up inside this little cave you have made. The -40-degree air is only a few inches away from your face, but it cannot touch your skin. You take a moment of reflection. You lean your head back against the velvet cushion and close your eyes for a few seconds. Everything is very quiet. You listen to the sounds of the night from inside your warm nest. You hear the horses breathing slow, deep, and steady. Hoo, hoo. You hear the tiny clink of the silver bells as the horses move their heads. You hear the distant, low moan of the wind in the tops of the pine trees. It is a peaceful moment. You feel very small in the middle of this giant, frozen land, but you also feel very cared for. All the work of the servants, the driver, and the stable hands was done just so you could sit here in this perfect circle of warmth. You open your eyes and look at the world around you. From down low in the seat, the snow looks even deeper. The edges of the sleigh are like the walls of a small fort. You see the driver sitting high above you. He looks like a dark mountain. He's not tucked into furs like you are. He must stay free to move his arms and guide the horses. You feel a sudden spark of thanks for his strength. You reach out and touch the velvet on the side of the seat. It feels cool to your fingers, but the air inside the sleigh is already getting warmer. The high wooden sides are doing a good job of blocking the wind. The wind tries to whistle past, but it cannot find a way to get to you. You feel a sense of magic. It is the middle of the night, in one of the coldest places on earth, and yet you are as warm as if you were sitting by a fireplace. This was the secret of the Russian nobility. They did not try to fight the winter. They learned how to hide inside it. The driver turns his head slightly. He looks to see if you are ready. You nod your head, and the fur of your collar rubs against your cheeks. You feel the heavy blankets settle even more firmly around you as the sleigh shifts a little. The runners make a tiny creak on the ice. You are ready to go. You have your house of fur, your sun of stone, and your walls of wood. The icy ribbon of the road is waiting for you. You take one last deep breath of the cold air. It smells so clean and sharp. Then, you tuck your chin down into the soft sable fur of your coat. You are completely ready now. You feel a deep, heavy calm. The world is white and black and silver, and you are right in the middle of it, safe in your nest of bear fur. The journey hasn't even started yet, but you already feel like you are in a dream. The horses lean into their harnesses. The bells give a sudden, joyful jingle, and you feel the very first pull of movement. The sleigh begins to slide. It is not a jump or a jerk. It is a smooth, gliding feeling, like a boat leaving the dock. You feel the power of the three horses through the floor of the sleigh. The sound of the runners on the snow changes. It is no longer a crunch. It is a long, low sound. It is the sound of the metal slicing through the frost. You lean back, let the heavy furs hold you tight, and prepare for the long, beautiful ride through the dark. The silence of the night is broken by a single, sharp sound. It is the first bell. The driver does not use a whip. Instead, he gives a small, sharp flick of the long leather reins. The middle horse, the leader, tosses his head back. This movement pulls on the dugal, the large wooden arch above his neck. At the very top of that arch, a heavy silver bell is tied with a thick leather cord. As the horse moves, the bell swings. Dong, ring, dong. The sound is deep and clear. It travels through the cold, thin air like a ripple in a frozen pond. It is a signal to everyone on the estate that the night ride has begun. As the sleigh begins to move faster, the other bells join in. These are the bubinchiki, the smaller bells tied all along the harness straps. Each one has a slightly different size and a slightly different note. Some are high and tinkling, like falling glass. Others are mid-toned and steady. Together, they do not just make noise, they make music. In Russia, this was called the sleigh song. Every driver had his own way of arranging his bells, so that his sleigh had its own special voice. People living in the nearby villages could hear the bells from a mile away and say, That is the Count's sleigh passing by, just by the tune of the bells. A historical fact about these silver bells is that they were actually required by law for a fast-moving travel at night. Because the sleigh runners make almost no sound on the soft snow, a sleigh could come upon a person or another carriage in total silence. In the dark, this was very dangerous. The bells were the lights of the sound world. They warned everyone to move aside. But for the nobility, the bells were also a matter of pride. They wanted the loudest, clearest, and most expensive silver bells they could find. The sound of silver is different from the sound of brass or iron. It is sharper and carries much further into the woods. You feel the rhythm of the bells start to change. At first, they were slow and heavy. Clink dot dot dot, clink dot 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 clink. But as the three horses find their pace, the sound becomes a fast, shimmering curtain of noise. It matches the beating of the horses' hooves on the hard-packed snow. The sound is very calming. It fills your ears and drowns out the whistling of the wind. You find yourself breathing in time with the bells. It is a steady, mechanical music that tells you everything is working exactly as it should. You look up at the driver's back. He's swaying slightly with the motion of the sleigh. He's listening to the bells very closely. This is a micro-history detail that only the night drivers knew. The driver uses the sound of the bells to check the health of his horses. If one bell starts to sound flat or stops ringing, it might mean a strap is loose or a horse is limping. The bells are like a heartbeat. As long as the music is steady and bright, the driver knows the icy ribbon of the road is safe. He hums a low tune under his breath, a song without words that blends in with the silver ringing. The sleigh is moving away from the palace now. You look back and see the orange glow of the windows getting smaller and smaller. The sound of the bells seems louder now that there are no buildings to bounce the noise back. You are entering the open fields. Here, the snow is flat and white as far as you can see. The bells ring out across the empty space. You imagine the sound traveling over the snow, past the frozen bushes, and into the dark caves where the forest animals are sleeping. You feel like the bells are creating a path of sound for you to follow. You take a moment of reflection. You watch the way the silver bells on the horses' chests catch the moonlight. They look like little drops of water frozen in midair. Every time the horse breathes, a cloud of steam hits the bells, and for a second, they disappear in the mist. Then they emerge again, sparking and ringing. It is a very beautiful, simple thing to watch. You think about how many thousands of miles these bells have traveled. They have rung through blizzards and under sunny winter skies. They have heard the laughter of parties and the quiet breathing of lonely travelers. Tonight, they are ringing just for you. The sound of the bells changes again as you move from the soft snow onto a patch of hard ice. The ringing becomes faster and more excited. The horses feel the easy glide of the ice, and they speed up. The sleigh song becomes a roar of silver. You feel the vibration of the music in the wooden floor of the sleigh, right under your feet. It travels through the bare furs and into your bones. It is a wonderful feeling, like being part of a giant musical instrument. You lean your head to the side. You can hear the echo of the bells coming back from a distant line of trees. It is a faint, ghostly ringing that follows you. It makes the night feel less lonely. It is as if another sleigh is riding alongside you in the spirit world. You pull your furs tighter around your chin. The cold is getting stronger as the speed increases, but the music of the bells makes you feel warm inside. It is the sound of celebration. It is the sound of the new year. The leader horse snorts, a loud, wet sound. The bells on his dugong give a giant jangle as he shakes his mane. The driver shouts a word of encouragement, Nusha, and the horses lean in. The music reaches a peak. You are no longer just a person in a sleigh. You are a passenger on a cloud of silver sound. The world of the palace is gone. The world of the morning is far away. There is only the dark, the moon, and the never-ending song of the silver bells. You close your eyes and let the ringing wash over you. It is so steady that it starts to feel like silence. Your mind drifts. You think about the craftsmen who hammered these bells out of hot silver in small village shops. You think about the leather workers who sewed the straps. All their work is here tonight, singing in the frost. You feel a deep sense of peace. The bells are guarding you. They are clearing the way. As long as they keep ringing, you know you are moving forward through the heart of the Russian night. The sleigh has left the yard of the palace far behind, and now you are truly moving. The horses have found their stride, and the world is starting to blur at the edges. You are no longer stepping through the snow. You are flying over it. The feeling of the sleigh is different now. At slow speeds, you can feel every little bump and dip in the ground. But now, as the three horses pull with all their strength, the runners seem to lift up. You feel a light, floating sensation in your stomach. It is like being in a small boat on a very calm lake, feeling the gentle rise and fall of the water. The icy ribbon of the road is smooth here. The wind has swept the top layer of snow away, leaving a hard, white crust. This crust is as solid as stone, but as slippery as oil. This is exactly what the silver runners were made for. You hear a new sound beneath you. It is no longer a crunch or a splash. It is a long, high-pitched whistle. Wee-ee. This is the sound of the metal runners getting hot from the rubbing against the ice. Even in -40-degree weather, the friction creates a tiny, invisible layer of water between the metal and the ice. You are literally sliding on a thin film of water. This is how the sleigh can move so fast with so little effort. You look out over the side of the sleigh. The fields are a giant sheet of silver under the moon. Because you are moving so fast, the individual clumps of grass and small bushes look like long, grey streaks. It is a bit like looking out of a fast-moving train, but there is no glass between you and the world. You can feel the speed in your chest. The air is not just cold now. It is a force. It pushes against your fur hat and tries to get under your collar. You pull the bare furs all the way up to your nose. You breathe through the fur, and the air feels warm and filtered. A historical fact about these night rides is that the speed was considered a kind of medicine for the soul. The Russian nobility believed that the fast air of a winter night could clear the mind and make the heart brave. They called it shekotat nervi, which means to tickle the nerves. In a world where most things moved very slowly on foot or by heavy wagon, the speed of a troika was the most exciting thing a person could experience. It made you feel powerful, as if you were faster than the winter itself. You notice a micro-history detail about the way you are sitting. To help you stay steady at this speed, there is a small leather strap attached to the inside of the sleigh's frame. It is called a pruzina strap. You reach out a gloved hand and loop your fingers through it. As the sleigh tilts slightly to the left or right, you can hold onto this strap to keep from sliding across the velvet seat. It makes you feel connected to the sleigh. You can feel every vibration of the wood and the iron through your arm. The driver is doing something amazing. He's leaning forward, his body almost over the horses' backs. He's talking to them constantly. He isn't shouting. He's using a low, rhythmic growl. Bistrai, morgalab cheeky, he says. This means faster, my little doves. It seems funny to call such big, powerful horses little doves, but in Russia, this was a term of great love. The horses hear him, and they move even faster. The two side horses, the ones galloping with their heads turned out, look like they are dancing. Their hooves are moving so fast you can hardly see them. They look like a blur of dark legs and flying white snow. You take a moment of reflection. You look up at the sky. Because you are moving so fast, the stars seem to be racing along with you. They look like bright holes poked in a heavy black blanket. You feel a sense of total freedom. Back at the palace, there are rules and clocks and people telling you what to do. But out here, on the open snow, there is only the wind and the speed. You feel like you could ride like this forever, all the way to the edge of the world. The cold doesn't feel like an enemy anymore. It feels like a partner. It is the cold that made this hard, fast road for you. The sleigh hits a small drift of soft snow. For a second, a giant cloud of white powder explodes over the front of the sleigh. It looks like a wave of milk. The snow is so light and dry that it doesn't even feel wet. It just brushes against your furs and disappears. You laugh softly under your breath. The speed makes you feel young and full of life. You watch the driver. He hasn't moved a muscle. He's like a rock in the middle of a storm. He knows exactly how to handle these snow waves. You can feel the muscles of the horses working. Even through the sound of the wind and the bells, you can hear the steady thump 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 of their hearts and the heavy huff of their breath. They are like a powerful engine made of flesh and bone. You feel a deep respect for them. They are giving you their strength so you can fly through the night. You look at the silver bells on the Douga again. They are swinging wildly now, ringing with a frantic, joyful sound. The world feels very big tonight. You see a distant hill, and on top of it, a single pine tree. In a few seconds, you have passed it and it is gone. The speed makes the landscape feel small, as if you are a giant crossing the earth in just a few steps. You lean back and let the motion rock you. The sleigh has a side-to-side swing that is very relaxing. It is like being in a giant cradle. Despite the speed and the roar of the wind, you feel a deep sleepiness starting to crawl into your brain. The fast air is doing its work. You look at the runners one more time. They are glowing in the moonlight. You think about the path you were leaving behind to perfect. Straight lines cut into the ice. They will stay there until the next snow falls, a secret map of where you have been. You are a ghost moving through the dark, leaving only a song of bells and a trail of silver lines. You close your eyes for a moment, just listening to the whistle of the runners and the beat of the hooves. You are safe in your nest, and the night is yours. As the sleigh flies forward, the open fields begin to fall away, and you feel the air change once more. The wind, which was pushing hard against your chest in the meadows, suddenly grows quiet. You are entering the edge of the great forest. Here, the tall pine trees stand like giant soldiers, their branches heavy with a thick, white crust of snow. This is the bitter night wind at its strongest, yet also its most secret. In the open, the wind is a roar, but here in the woods, it becomes a sharp, biting whistle that moves through the needles of the trees. It sounds like the forest is taking a long, cold breath. The temperature has dropped even further now that you are away from the flatlands. You can feel the -40-degree air trying to find any tiny opening in your furs. It is a strange kind of cold. It does not just feel chilly. It feels heavy. It feels as if the air itself has turned into a solid thing that you must push through. When you move your arm, you can feel the resistance of the freezing atmosphere. A historical fact about this level of cold is that the Russian people called it the Iron Frost. It was said that at this temperature, the iron of the sleigh runners could become brittle and break as they hit a stone, and the very breath of a man could turn into a shower of ice crystals before it reached the ground. You pull your head down further into your sable collar. The fur is warm, but the tip of your nose is exposed to the night. You feel a sharp, stinging sensation, like 100 tiny needles pressing into your skin. This is the first touch of the frost. To protect yourself, you take a corner of the bare fur blanket and hold it loosely over your face. This creates a small pocket of space where your own breath stays trapped. This pocket stays at a much warmer temperature than the outside world. You can feel the moisture of your breath making the fur damp, but that dampness stays warm against your cheeks. It is a simple trick, but it is how people survive the long hours on the icy ribbon. You notice a micro-history detail on the driver's face. He's wearing a piece of gear called a masker. It is not a mask like you would wear to a party, but a simple square of thick wool with two small slits for the eyes. It is tied around his head to protect his skin from the iron frost, because he must look ahead at the road. He cannot hide under blankets like you. The wool is already white with the frozen steam from his nose. He looks like a creature made of snow and fabric, a true ghost of the night shift. You see him blink, and you notice that even his eyelashes have tiny balls of ice on them. He does not seem to mind. He's used to the bite of the wind. The forest acts like a giant tunnel. The trees are so thick and so tall that they block out the moonlight in some places. You are moving through a world of deep shadows and bright, silver flashes. The wind hits the tops of the trees, and every few minutes, a cloud of fine, dry snow falls from the branches. It looks like white dust dancing in the dark. One of these clouds hits the sleigh, and for a second, you are surrounded by a cold, white mist. It feels like walking through a frozen cloud. You close your eyes and feel the tiny grains of ice settle on your coat. They do not melt. They are too cold to melt. They just sit there like tiny diamonds until the wind brushes them away. You take a moment of reflection. You listen to the sound of the wind in the pines. It is a lonely sound, but it is also very beautiful. It reminds you of how big and wild the world is. While you are safe in your velvet seat, the forest is alive in its own quiet way. You think about the sap inside the trees, frozen solid like glass. You think about the deep roots holding onto the frozen earth. The wind is the only thing moving in this frozen kingdom. It is a reminder that the winter is a powerful king, and you are just a guest passing through his palace of ice. The sleigh runners make a different sound here in the woods, because the snow is deeper and softer. The high whistle turns into a low, muffled hush hush hush. It is a very soothing sound. It makes you feel like the sleigh's being carried on a bed of feathers. The horses feel the change too. They slow down just a little bit, their powerful legs lifting high to clear the soft drifts. You can see the steam from their bodies rising straight up now, because the trees are protecting you from the side winds. The steam forms a long, white tail behind the sleigh that follows you like a ghost. You feel a sense of deep calm. The bitter wind is still out there, howling in the branches, but inside your nest of fur, you are a small island of heat. Your soapstone is still glowing warm at your feet, and the heavy bear rugs are holding your body heat close. You realize that the cold is not something to be afraid of if you are prepared for it. It is just a part of the night, like the stars or the shadows. You feel a strange kind of friendship with the wind. It is pushing you along, telling you stories of the North Pole and the great frozen seas. The driver makes a low sound in his throat, a signal to the horses. They move closer together as the path narrows. You can see the bark of the trees passing just a few inches from the side of the sleigh. The bark is rough and dark, covered in patches of pale green moss that has frozen into hard crusts. The smell of the pine is very strong here. It is a sharp, medicinal smell that clears your head and makes you feel very awake. It is the smell of the Russian heartland. You look back one more time at the open fields you left behind. They are a world of white light. But here in the forest, the world is dark and grey and mysterious. The wind whispers through the needles, and the silver bells of the horses ring out with a muffled, lonely tone. You are deep in the heart of the night now. The -40-degree air is all around you, but you are not cold. You are part of the story of the forest. You are the passenger in the dark, gliding through the iron frost with the steady beat of the horses' hooves to keep you company. The sleigh moves deeper into the trees, and the light of the moon becomes a series of silver coins scattered on the snow. You lean back and watch the branches pass over your head like the ribs of a giant umbrella. The wind continues its long, cold song, and you drift further into the dream of the Russian winter. As you travel deeper into the dark forest, the shadows of the pine trees stretch out across the path like long, thin fingers. The world is very dark here, away from the open moonlight of the fields. But the night shift does not stop for the darkness. Ahead of you, you see a flickering orange glow. It is not the soft, steady light of a candle. It is the wild, jumping light of fire. As the sleigh rounds a corner, you see a row of men standing along the edge of the track. These are the torch bearers. Their job is to light the icy ribbon so the horses do not trip on hidden roots or fall into deep holes in the snow. Each man holds a long wooden pole with a bundle of cloth tied to the end. The cloth has been soaked in thick, black pitch, which is a kind of sticky oil made from trees. This is a micro-history detail of the Russian night. These torches are called fakely. They burn with a bright, smoky flame that the wind cannot blow out. As the sleigh passes by, you can smell the heavy, oily scent of the burning pitch. It smells like a campfire mixed with the salt of the sea. The fire makes a loud crackle hiss sound as the heat hits the frozen air. For a few seconds, the orange light fills the sleigh, turning your green velvet seat and your brown bear furs into a warm, glowing amber color. A historical fact about these torch bearers is that they were often village men who were paid extra to stand in the cold 4 hours. They would space themselves out every 50 yards. This created a hallway of fire through the deepest parts of the woods. It was a very expensive thing to do, used only for the most important New Year rites. It showed everyone that the nobility could bring the sun into the middle of the night. You look at the men as you glide past. They stand as still as statues, their faces tucked deep into their sheepskin collars. They do not wave or cheer. They simply hold their torches high, their eyes following the silver runners of your sleigh. The heat from the torches is a strange thing. As you pass close to one, you feel a sudden, sharp flash of warmth on your cheek. It only lasts for a heartbeat before the -40-degree air takes over again. It is a reminder of how powerful the frost is. The fire tries to push the cold away, but the cold is everywhere. You see the orange light reflecting in the eyes of the horses. They look like magical creatures with glowing eyes, running through a world of sparks and smoke. The silver bells on their harness catch the firelight, flashing like pieces of gold. You take a moment of reflection. You look back at the line of torches you have already passed. They look like a string of orange pearls dropped in the snow. In the vast, black silence of the Russian forest, these little fires seem very brave. They are small and fragile, but they hold back the dark. You think about the men standing there in the iron frost, their hands gripped around the cold wood of the poles. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for their work. They are the ones making this magical moment possible. Without their fire, you would be lost in a world of shadows. The light from the torches makes the snow look different. Instead of being blue and silver, it looks like a carpet of crushed jewels. You can see the texture of the drifts, the way the wind has carved them into waves and sharp peaks. You see the tracks of a hare that crossed the path just moments ago. The torches reveal the secrets of the forest that the moon cannot see. You notice the way the light jumps and dances on the bark of the birch trees. The white bark looks like ghost skin in the firelight, peeling away in thin, papery strips. The driver likes the light. He sits up a bit straighter on his bench. With the torches to guide him, he lets the horses move a little faster. The sleigh song of the bells becomes more rhythmic and loud. You feel the sleigh tilt as it follows a curve in the road. You hold on to the leather prusina strap, feeling the strength of the oak frame. The orange glow of the torches reflects off the shiny black lacquer of the sleigh's body. It looks like the sleigh itself is made of liquid fire. You pull your hands deeper into your fur muff. A muff is a tube made of fur that you slide both hands into to keep them warm. Inside the muff, you have a small metal box called a grelka. This box is filled with glowing charcoal wrapped in silk. It is a micro-history detail that acts like a tiny heater for your fingers. Between the torchlight and the grelka, you feel like you are being wrapped in a blanket of warmth, even though the trees around you are popping and cracking from the deep freeze. Sometimes, the wind catches the smoke from a torch and blows it across the path. For a moment, you are inside a grey cloud that smells of ancient forests and hot oil. It is a cozy, thick smell. Then, as quickly as it came, the smoke is gone, and you are back in the sharp, clean air of the night. You look at the driver's back. The orange light catches the frost on his beard, making it look like it is made of copper and gold instead of ice. He looks like a king being led through his kingdom. The line of torches begins to thin out. You are coming to the end of the guarded path. The orange glow starts to fade, and the silver moonlight begins to take over again. You watch the last torch bearer pass by. He gives a small nod as the sleigh's bells ring out a final thanks. The world becomes quiet and blue once more. The smell of the pitch smoke lingers in your furs for a while, a sweet memory of the fire. You lean back and look at the stars. They seem even brighter now that the orange fire is gone. You feel a sense of peace. The night shift of the torch bearers has done its job. They have guided you through the deepest shadows, and now you are ready for the open woods again. The sleigh glides on, the silver runners whistling their high, cold song. You feel the heavy bare rugs settle around you, and you close your eyes, imagining the flickering flames still dancing in the dark behind you. The orange glow of the torches has vanished completely now, replaced by the cool, silver light of the moon. You are moving into the deepest part of the forest. This is the frozen forest path, a place where the trees are so tall and so thick that they seem to touch the stars. In the summer, this path is green and full of the sounds of birds and rustling leaves. But tonight, it is a hall of white and black. The snow on the ground is undisturbed, a smooth sheet of white silk that has never been stepped on by a human foot. Only the runners of your sleigh cut through it, leaving two long, dark gashes in the silver. The air here is even quieter than in the meadows. The massive trees act like walls, blocking out the wind. You no longer hear the whistle of the breeze. You only hear the sounds of the sleigh itself. You can hear the wooden frame creak, it twists over a bump. You can hear the horses' hooves making a dull thud-thud-thud on the packed snow of the track. It is a very intimate sound, as if you are the only living thing for 100 miles. The trees look like giant white ghosts standing in the dark. Their branches are so heavily laden with snow that they bend toward the ground, creating natural arches for the sleigh to pass under. A historical fact about these forest paths is that they were often the only roads that existed in the winter. In the 1800s, the mud of the autumn made travel impossible. But once the iron frost arrived, the ground became as hard as stone, and the snow filled in all the holes. The winter turned the wild forest into a highway. The Russian people loved this. They felt that the winter did not trap them. It set them free to travel anywhere the runners could slide. You are experiencing that freedom now, gliding through a wilderness that would be impossible to walk through on foot. You notice a micro-history detail on the trees as you pass. On the bark of the old pines, you see frozen drips of amber-colored sap. These are called forest tears. In the deep cold of -40 degrees, the sap inside the tree can sometimes expand and crack the bark. The liquid leaks out and freezes instantly into hard, clear lumps that look like jewels. In the moonlight, These tears sparkle with a faint, golden light. It is a small sign of the life that is still hidden deep inside the frozen wood, waiting for the spring. You take a moment of reflection. You look up at the snow roof above you. The branches of the trees on both sides of the path meet in the middle, high over your head. It feels like you are driving through a great cathedral made of ice and wood. The silence is so deep that you find yourself holding your breath. You feel a sense of great respect for the forest. It is old and powerful, and it does not care about the world of men. It simply exists, beautiful and cold. You feel very small, like a tiny insect moving across a giant's white carpet. The driver slows the horses to a gentle trot. He knows that in the deep woods, you must be careful. Sometimes, the weight of the snow on a branch becomes too much. You hear a sudden crack, a sound as loud as a gunshot. It is a branch breaking under the weight of the ice. The sound echoes through the trees, bouncing off the trunks and fading into the distance. The horses flick their ears, but they do not stop. They trust the driver to keep them safe. You see a shower of white powder fall from a nearby tree, looking like a handful of diamonds thrown into the air. The smell of the forest is different here. It is no longer just the smell of pine. It is the smell of the deep sleep. It is a dry, cold scent that tells you everything is frozen solid. It is the smell of the earth resting under 6 feet of snow. It is a very clean smell, with no dust or smoke. It makes your lungs feel cold and clear. You pull the bare fur a little closer to your chin. The fur is warm from your breath, and the contrast between the warm fur and the cold air is very pleasant. You see a small wooden cross by the side of the road, covered in a thick cap of snow. This is a traveler's marker. In the old days, people would place these to help others find their way in a storm. It is a simple thing made of 2 birch branches tied together, but it looks very lonely in the dark. It reminds you that the night shift in the forest can be dangerous if you do not have a good driver and strong horses. You are glad for the bells on the harness. Their steady ringing keeps the ghosts of the woods away and tells the world that you are still moving. The path begins to climb a small hill. You feel the muscles of the horses straining as they pull the sleigh up the slope. The driver leans forward, shifting his weight to help them. You can hear their heavy, rhythmic breathing, half, puff, half. The steam from their bodies is so thick here that it coats the nearby bushes in a layer of white frost. By the time you reach the top of the hill, the horses are covered in a thin layer of white ice from their own sweat and breath. They look like statues made of silver. From the top of the hill, you can see down into a small valley. The trees are less thick there, and the moon shines brightly on a frozen stream. The water is a flat, black line cutting through the white snow. You feel a sense of wonder. You are seeing parts of the world that very few people ever see at night. You are a witness to the secret life of the winter forest. The sleigh begins to slide down the other side of the hill, and the runners make a happy, singing sound once more. You lean back and let the movement of the sleigh rock you. The deep woods are a world of their own, a place where time seems to stand still. You feel a deep, heavy peace in your heart. The iron frost is all around you, but inside your nest of fur and velvet, you are safe. The horses move forward, their silver bells ringing out a soft, steady song that leads you deeper into the heart of the Russian night. As the horses pick up speed again, you notice something beautiful and strange happening in the air around you. It is no longer just dark and clear. The air is becoming filled with a very fine, white dust. At first, you think it might be a light snow starting to fall from the clouds, but when you look up, the stars are still bright and sharp. This is not snow from the sky. This is diamond dust. It happens when the air is so cold below -30 or -40 degrees that the moisture in the air freezes into tiny, flat crystals right in front of your eyes. These crystals are so light that they do not fall like regular snow. They float and dance in the air like tiny pieces of glitter. The movement of the three horses and the heavy sleigh creates a small wind of its own. This wind lifts the diamond dust off the ground and pulls it into the air. As you glide along, you are surrounded by a cloud of sparkling ice. Every time the moon hits a crystal, it flashes with a tiny bit of light. It looks like you are riding through a sea of fallen stars. The dust settles on your bare fur blankets and on the velvet of your seat. It stays there, shining like silver sand, because it is far too cold to melt. You reach out a gloved hand and try to catch some, but the crystals are so small and light that the movement of your hand just blows them away. A historical fact about this frozen dust is that Russian travelers used it to tell how cold the night really was. If the air was just regular cold, the moisture stayed as a gas, but when the diamond dust appeared, it was a warning that the iron frost had arrived in full force. It was a sign to the night shift workers that they must be extra careful to touch any bare metal with their skin. At this temperature, skin will stick to metal instantly, causing a painful burn from the ice. This is why your sleigh is lined with so much wood, velvet, and carpet. Everything you touch has been covered to keep you safe from the bite of the frozen world. You notice a micro-history detail on the harness of the horses. The leather straps are starting to look white. This is not from the snow, but from the breath of the horses. As they run, they breathe out big clouds of steam. That steam hits the cold leather and the silver bells, and it turns into a thick, white frost. This is called rime ice. It grows in beautiful, feather-like shapes on the edges of the harness. By the time the ride is over, the horses will look like they are wearing lace made of ice. Even the dugar, the big wooden arch, is growing a white beard of frost that sparkles in the moonlight. You take a moment of reflection. You watch the diamond dust swirl in the wake of the sleigh. It follows you like a long, shining tail. You feel like you are in a different world, a world where the air itself has turned into jewelry. It is very quiet, and the light is so soft. You feel a sense of wonder that such a cold, harsh thing as -40-degree air can produce something so delicate and pretty. It reminds you that there is beauty to be found even in the middle of a bitter winter night, if you are brave enough to go out and look for it. The driver doesn't seem to notice the beauty. He is too busy watching the road, but you see him wipe his eyes with his heavy wool sleeve. The diamond dust can get into a driver's eyes and make them stink. He pulls his hat down even lower, so only a tiny slit is left for him to see through. He knows that this dust is a sign that the night is at its coldest point. He keeps the horses moving at a steady pace, not wanting them to stand still for too long. In this cold, movement is life. If the horses stop, their muscles will stiffen and the runners might freeze to the ground. You pull your fur muff up to your face and breathe in. The air is full of these tiny ice crystals. They feel sharp and cold in your nose, but they have a very clean, fresh taste. It is the purest air you have ever breathed. There is no dust from the city, no smell of coal from the palace, just the scent of the frozen forest and the taste of the ice. You feel very awake and alive. The fast air and the diamond dust are like a cold drink of water for your spirit. You look down at the floor of the sleigh. The white dust has gathered in the folds of the carpet. It looks like a layer of powdered sugar. You imagine what it would be like to be a tiny creature living in this forest, watching this giant black sleigh fly past in a cloud of silver glitter. You must look like a vision from a fairy tale. You feel a deep connection to the history of this land. For hundreds of years, people have sat in sleighs just like this one, watching the same diamond dust dance in the moonlight. You are part of a long line of winter travelers. The sleigh moves out of the thick trees for a moment, crossing a small wooden bridge. The wood of the bridge moans and cracks under the weight. The sound is very loud in the still night. Below you, the frozen river is a flat, dark road of its own. The diamond dust is even thicker here over the ice, forming a low mist that hides the surface of the river. You feel like you are floating over a cloud. Then, the sleigh reaches the other side and dives back into the shadows of the pines. You lean back and close your eyes. Even with your eyes shut, you can almost feel the sparkle of the air against your eyelids. The rhythmic sound of the bells and the whistling of the runners are like a lullaby. You are being carried through a kingdom of silver dust, tucked away in your warm nest of bear fur. The world is cold, yes, but it is also filled with light. You drift further into the peace of the night, knowing that the iron frost is creating a masterpiece of ice all around you. The deep cold has a way of making you feel very hungry and very thirsty. Your body is working so hard to stay warm that it uses up all its energy. Just as you start to feel a little bit of a chill in your bones, the driver reaches down into a small wooden box at his feet. He pulls out a large, heavy object wrapped in a thick wool cloth. As he unwraps it, you see the dull shine of silver and brass. This is the samovar. A samovar is a traditional Russian metal urn used to boil water and keep tea hot. It is a micro-history detail that no winter traveler would ever be without. This samovar is a special travel version. It has a flat side so it can sit steady against the wall of the sleigh, and its legs are short and strong. Inside the middle of the urn, there is a metal pipe filled with glowing charcoal. This charcoal keeps the water bubbling and hot for hours, even in the middle of a -40-degree forest. The driver pours a dark, steaming liquid into a small metal cup. The steam rises up in a thick white cloud, disappearing into the diamond dust of the air. He hands the cup back to you. The metal is hot, but you are wearing your thick gloves, so it feels wonderful against your palms. The tea is not like the tea you drink in the afternoon at the palace. This is sleigh tea. It is very strong and very dark. A historical fact about this tea is that it was often mixed with a large spoonful of raspberry jam or a bit of honey instead of sugar. The sugar would sometimes freeze into hard rocks, but the jam stayed soft and gave the travelers much needed energy. As you take your first sip, the heat spreads through your mouth and down into your chest. It feels like a warm hand is touching your heart. The taste is sweet, smoky, and fruity. It is the best thing you have ever tasted. You hold the cup close to your face. The steam warms your nose and melts the tiny bits of frost on your eyelashes. For a moment, the bitter night wind doesn't matter. The -40-degree air can whistle all it wants, but you have a fire inside you now. You take another slow sip. You can feel the warmth traveling all the way down to your toes, meeting the heat from the soapstone at the bottom of the sleigh. You are now a sandwich of warmth, with hot tea inside and bare furs outside. You take a moment of reflection. You look at the driver as he takes his own cup of tea. He drinks it in one long gulp, his white frosted beard steaming from the heat. You realize how much work it takes just to stay alive in this beautiful, frozen land. Every little thing, the charcoal in the samovar, the jam in the tea, the wool around the stone, is a clever way that humans have learned to survive the night shift. It makes the world feel very small and very cozy. Even though you are in the middle of a giant forest, you are in a tiny, floating kitchen. The samovar makes a low, singing sound as the water inside continues to boil. It sounds like a small cat purring in the corner of the sleigh. It is a very homely sound. You lean back into the green velvet, holding your empty cup. The metal is still warm, and you tuck it inside your fur muff to keep your fingers extra toasty. The horses seem to smell the sweet tea, too. The leader horse snorts and tosses his head, the silver bells giving a happy jingle. They know that a tea break means the driver is happy and the road is good. You notice the smell of the tea lingering in the air. It is a smell of wood smoke and dried berries. It mixes with the sharp scent of the pine trees and the cold smell of the snow. It is a very comforting mixture. You feel a deep sense of contentment. You are not just a passenger anymore. You are a part of the sleigh's tiny, warm world. You look at the dark trees passing by, and you feel sorry for them. They have to stay out in the cold, while you have your hot tea and your velvet seat. The driver puts the samovar back into its wooden box. He covers it with the wool cloth once more. He gathers the reins and gives a soft whistle. The horses move from a trot into a fast run. The sleigh song of the bells picks up speed, matching the rhythm of your heart. You feel the speed returning, the wind beginning to push against your furs again. But this time, you are ready for it. The tea has given you a new layer of protection. You feel strong and full of life. You look down at the snow. The diamond dust is still dancing in the air, but now it looks like sparks from a fire instead of ice. Your imagination is playing tricks on you because you feel so warm. You watch the silver runners slice through the white crust. They look like they are made of light. You close your eyes for a second and just feel the heat in your belly. It is a solid, glowing weight that makes you feel safe. The forest begins to open up a little. You can see more of the moon again. The icy ribbon stretches out ahead of you, a long path of silver and shadow. You are moving deeper into the night, but the tea has made you feel like the sun is rising inside you. You lean your head back, listen to the purr of the runners, and let the magic of the Russian winter carry you forward. You are warm, you are fed, and the night is full of wonders. The forest is very quiet again now that the tea has been tucked away. The only thing you can hear is the music of the ride. But as the horses move from the soft, deep snow of the trees onto a long stretch of frozen road, the sound changes. It is no longer a muffled hush. Now, it is a clear, sharp, and steady drumming. This is the sound of hooves on ice. It is a rhythmic beat that echoes through the night. Clack thud, clack thud, clack thud. It sounds like a giant clock ticking away the seconds of the winter night. You lean your head over the side of the sleigh just a little bit to watch the horses' legs. They are moving so fast that they look like a blur. You can see the power in their shoulders and the way their muscles bunch and release. Every time a hoof hits the ground, a small spray of ice chips flies into the air. In the moonlight, these chips look like shards of broken glass. The horses are not struggling. They are in their element. They love the hard, fast ground. The sound of their hooves is the heartbeat of your journey. A historical fact about these winter horses is that they were specifically trained to keep this rhythm 4 hours without stopping. In Russia, this was called the Great Gallop. The horses were bred to have very large hearts and lungs, so they could take in the freezing air and turn it into pure speed. A good team of horses was worth a fortune, because they were the only things that could move this fast across the iron frost. They were treated with more care than the finest cars are today. They were the pride of the Russian nobility, and the sound of their hooves was the sound of power. To keep the horses from slipping on the smooth ice, the blacksmith had to be very clever. This brings us to a micro-history detail of the night shift. If you could look closely at the bottom of the horse's hooves, you would see special winter shoes. These shoes have sharp metal spikes screwed into them. In Russia, these spikes are called shippy. They are like the spikes on a track runner's shoe. They bite into the hard ice, giving the horse a firm grip so it can push off with all its strength. Without these shippy, the horses would slide and fall like a person on a skating rink. You can hear the metal spikes biting the ice with every step. It makes a tiny tink sound just before the heavy thud of the hoof. You take a moment of reflection. You close your eyes and just listen to the rhythm. The sound of 12 hooves hitting the ground in perfect time is very hypnotic. It feels like the whole world is moving to this beat. You can feel the vibration of the drumming through the floor of the sleigh. It travels up through your boots and into your legs. It is a strong, steady feeling that makes you feel very safe. You realize that as long as you hear that sound, you are moving forward. If the sound stopped, the silence would be very scary. But the drumming is constant. It is the sound of life and movement in a world that is otherwise frozen still. The driver is also listening to the hooves. He can tell if a horse is getting tired or if a shoe is coming loose just by the change in the note of the beat. He keeps his hands steady on the reins, feeling the pull of the animals. The horses are breathing in time with their steps. Every time they exhale, a giant puff of white steam shoots out from their noses, lit by the moon. It looks like the horses are made of fire and smoke. The steam hangs in the air for a second, marking the path you have taken. You notice how the sound changes when you pass a large rock or a clump of trees. The sound bounces back at you, becoming louder and sharper for a moment. It is like the forest is talking back to the horses. The silver bells on the duggar and the harness join in, adding a high-pitched ring to the low drumming of the hooves. It is a beautiful concert of sound. You feel like you are part of a giant machine, a living engine of bone and silver and wood. The road curves along the edge of a frozen lake. Here, the ice is as flat as a tabletop. The horses speed up even more. The drumming becomes a roar. You feel the wind rushing past your ears, making a low whistling sound. The icy ribbon is at its best here. You feel like you are standing on the edge of the world, watching the stars race by. The speed is so great that you feel a little bit lightheaded, but in a good way. It is the fast air doing its work on your mind. You look at the lead horse. He is a dark shadow against the white snow, but you can see the white frost on his mane. He looks like a creature from an old storybook. He is leading you through the night, his hooves marking the way. You feel a deep bond with these animals. They are the ones doing all the work, while you sit in your furs and drink your tea. You wish you could tell them how much you appreciate their strength. You settle for watching the rhythmic movement of their ears, which are flicking back and forth, listening to the driver and the bells. The drumming of the hooves is a very ancient sound. People have been hearing this sound in Russia for 1,000 years. It is the sound of the night shift through the ages. It is a sound that means someone is coming home, or someone is going on a great adventure. Tonight, it is the sound of your adventure. You lean back against the green velvet and let the rhythm carry you away. The clack thud of the ice is a lullaby that tells you everything is all right. The world is dark, the moon is high, and the ice is hard, but the horses are strong, and their hooves are making a path for you through the iron frost. You close your eyes again, feeling the steady vibration in your feet, and you drift a little further into the dream of the sleigh ride. The sound of the hooves is the only thing that matters. It is the heartbeat of the night, and it is beating just for you. The sleigh moves out from the shadow of the tall pines, and suddenly the world opens up. You have reached the high ridge of a hill, and for the first time tonight, you can see the sky in its full glory. It is midnight, and hanging in the center of the black sky is a moon so large and so white it looks like a giant pearl. In Russia, the moon during the iron frost is famous for being incredibly bright, because the air is so cold and so dry. There is no mist or dust to hide the light. The moonlight falls on the forest and the fields like a heavy blanket of silver. It is so bright that you could easily read a book by its glow. Everything below you is painted in shades of blue and silver. The trees that were dark and scary in the shadows now look like they are made of glass. Every branch is covered in a layer of frozen snow that catches the moonbeams. This creates a soft, glowing light that seems to come from the ground itself. You look down at your own hands. The dark fur of your coat is now shimmering with a silver light. Even the steam from the horse's breath has turned into a glowing white mist that stays in the air long after you have passed. It is a world without colors, only light and shadow. A historical fact about the midnight moon in Russia is that it was often called the sun of the dead. People believed that while the sun belonged to the living world of the day, the moon was the light of the spirit world. For the nobility, a ride under the midnight moon was a way to feel connected to the magic of the land. They would plan their New Year rides to match the full moon, so they could see the silver landscape in all its beauty. It was considered the most romantic and peaceful time to be awake, far away from the noisy parties and the bright candles of the palace. As the sleigh glides along the ridge, you notice a micro-history detail about the light. Because the moon is so high and the snow is so flat, your shadow is cast far out to the side of the sleigh. This is called a moon shadow. Your shadow looks like a giant, dark bird flying across the snow. You can see the shadow of the three horses, the duga, and the driver all moving in perfect time. It is a strange feeling to see yourself moving so fast without making a sound in the soft snow. The shadow looks like a ghost sleigh following you, keeping you company on the lonely road. You take a moment of reflection. You ask the driver to slow the horses for a minute. He pulls on the reins, and the drumming of the hooves turns into a soft walk. The silver bells give one last, quiet jingle, and then full silence. You sit there, perfectly still, at the top of the hill. The silence is massive. It is a silence that feels like it has weight. You look out over the miles of frozen trees and the white river in the distance. You feel like the only person left on earth. The moon is watching you, and the forest is waiting. It is a moment of pure peace. You realize that the world is a very beautiful place when it is asleep. The air is very still here on the ridge. Without the movement of the sleigh, you can feel the -40-degree cold pressing against your face. But it doesn't feel biting right now. It feels like a cold silk cloth. You breathe in slowly, and the moonlight seems to fill your lungs. You look at the stars surrounding the moon. They are not twinkling like they do in the summer. They are steady and sharp, like diamonds set in black velvet. You can see the Milky Way, the long river of stars, stretching from one side of the sky to the other. In this cold air, you can see more stars than you ever thought possible. The driver sits quietly too. He does not turn around. He is looking at the horizon, where the white snow meets the black sky. He knows that this is the heart of the night. He tips his head back to look at the moon, and the ice on his beard sparkles. For a few minutes, the night shift is on break. There is no need to rush, no need to talk. There is only the moon and the white world. You feel a deep sense of calm. All your worries from the palace, the big dinners, the politics, the busy days feel very far away and very small. Out here, under the midnight moon, everything is simple. You notice the way the light reflects off the ice on the horses' manes. Each little crystal of ice acts like a tiny mirror, bouncing the moonlight back at you. The horses look like they are wearing crowns of stars. They stand very still, their heads down, resting. You can hear the soft crackle of the snow settling under the weight of the runners. It is a tiny sound, but in the deep silence, it sounds very clear. You feel a connection to the animals and the driver. You are all part of the same quiet moment. The moon starts to move behind a thin, wispy cloud. The light on the snow changes from bright silver to a soft, smoky grey. The shadows of the trees become blurry. It is a signal that the moment of rest is over. The driver shifts on his bench. He gathered the leather reins once more. He gives a soft cluck with his tongue. The horses lift their heads, and the silver bells start their music again. The sleigh song returns, and the peace of the silence is broken, but the peace in your heart stays. As the sleigh begins to move down the other side of the hill, you look back at the ridge one last time. The moon is still there, a giant lamp in the dark. You feel like you have been given a secret gift. You have seen the world at its most quiet and its most beautiful. You pull your bare furs up high, feeling the warmth of your nest, and prepare for the next part of the journey. The light of the midnight moon follows you, painting a silver path on the icy ribbon of the road ahead. You are gliding again now, the runners whistling and the hoofs drumming. The shadows are long and the air is sharp, but the memory of the silence on the hill stays with you. It is the core of the Russian winter, a mixture of deep cold and incredible silver beauty. You close your eyes for a heartbeat, picturing the moon in your mind, and then you open them to see the forest rushing towards you once more, lit by the pale, cold fire of the night sky. The high ridge is now behind you, and the sleigh has dipped back into the lower valleys where the air is even colder. As you glide along the edge of a frozen field, you see a small, bright orange light flickering in the distance. It is not like the torches of the palace guards. This is a low, ground-level glow. The driver sees it too, and steers the horses toward it. As you get closer, the smell of wood smoke fills the air. It is a thick, sweet smell that makes your mouth water. You are approaching a fire pit, a place where the night shift can stop for a few minutes to keep the iron frost at bay. The fire is built in a deep hole dug into the snow, which keeps the wind from blowing the sparks away. This is a micro-history detail called a costia. Around the hole, the snow has melted and turned into a hard ring of clear ice. Large logs of birch and pine are stacked in the center, and the flames are reaching up toward the dark sky. There are a few men standing around the fire. They are woodcutters who work during the night, because the frozen wood is easier to split. When they see the sleigh, they move back to give you space. Their faces are red from the heat, and their clothes are covered in whitewood dust. The driver brings the horses to a stop. This is a moment of atmospheric silence. You do not get out of the sleigh, but you lean over the side. The heat from the fire hits you like a warm wave. It feels incredible against your cold cheeks. You watch the orange sparks fly up and disappear into the black night. For a few minutes, nobody speaks. The only sounds are the crackle pop of the burning wood and the heavy breathing of the horses. You look at the fire and then at the dark woods just a few feet away. It is amazing how much a small pile of burning wood can change the world. Inside the circle of light, everything is warm and golden. Outside, the world is blue, silver, and freezing. A historical fact about these fire pits is that they were often placed at the halfway point of long winter roads. In the 1800s, there were no shops or houses for many miles. These fires were maintained by the local villages as a way to help travelers stay alive. They were like lighthouses on a sea of snow. Without them, a person whose sleigh broke down would have no way to get warm. The fire pit was a place of safety, where a driver could check his horses and the passenger could stretch their legs for a moment without freezing. You notice one of the woodcutters holding a long iron rod. At the end of the rod, he has a piece of dark bread. He is toasting it over the coals. This is another micro-history detail of the night. The bread is called borodinsky. It is a heavy, sour rye bread topped with coriander seeds. As it toasts, it releases a spicy, earthy smell that mixes with the pine smoke. The man breaks off a piece and offers it to your driver. The driver nods and takes it, his large gloved hands carefully holding the warm bread. The smell makes you feel cozy and grounded. You take a moment of reflection. You look at the contrast between the fire and the frost. You see a small branch near the edge of the pit. One side of the branch is steaming from the heat, while the other side is still covered in a thick layer of white ice. It is a perfect picture of the Russian winter. Life and death, heat and cold, all sitting right next to each other. You feel very lucky to be tucked inside your bear furs, watching the fire from a distance. You realize that the fire is not just for warmth. It is a way for people to gather and feel less alone in the giant, dark night. The driver finishes his bread and wipes his hands on his coat. He looks at you and asks if you are warm enough. You nod, feeling the steady heat of the soapstones still working at your feet. You don't want to leave the fire, but the horses are getting restless. They don't like to stand still for too long when it is -40 degrees. Their sweat is starting to turn into a white crust of ice on their coats, and they need to move to keep their blood flowing. The driver gathers the reins and gives a soft command. As the sleigh moves away from the fire pit, the orange light begins to shrink. You look back and see the woodcutters returning to their work. One of them picks up a heavy axe, and you hear the sharp thwack of wood being split. The sound is very clear in the cold air. The golden glow fades, and the blue moonlight takes over once more. You feel a little sad to leave the warmth, but the sleigh song of the bells quickly cheers you up. The music of the silver is a different kind of warmth. The icy ribbon stretches out ahead of you, and the horses move back into a fast trot. You pull the bear furs up to your chin, and you can still smell a tiny bit of the wood smoke on your coat. It is a nice reminder of the people you met. You think about how many people are awake tonight, working the night shift to keep the world moving. The torch bearers, the stable hands, the woodcutters, they are all part of the story of the winter. You feel a sense of peace as you glide deeper into the dark. The fire pit was like a small island in a vast, white ocean. Now you are back on the waves, moving through the iron frost with the rhythm of the hoofs to guide you. The forest is quiet, the moon is high, and the air is sharp. You lean back into the green velvet, feeling very safe and very small, and let the dream of the sleigh ride carry you further into the heart of the night. You look up at the high bench where your driver sits. From your seat deep in the furs, he looks like a giant shadow against the stars. Now that you have been out in the iron frost for a long time, you start to notice how he manages to stay alive up there in the wind. While you are tucked away in a velvet nest, he's facing the full force of the -40-degree air. To do this, he's wearing so many layers that he can hardly bend his arms. This is the secret of the night shift. You do not wear one big coat. You wear many, many layers of thick wool and heavy leather. The driver is wearing a very special set of clothes. Under his big outer coat, he has at least 3 other jackets. The first is a thin wool tunic, then a thicker one, and then a heavy leather vest. On top of all of that is his great winter coat, which is called an armiak. This is a micro-history detail of the Russian road. An armiak is a very wide, loose coat made of heavy camel hair or thick wool. It is designed to be so big that the driver can wrap it around his body twice. This creates a massive wall of cloth that the wind cannot find a way through. It has no buttons, only a thick sash to hold it closed. You can see how wide he looks, almost as wide as the seat he sits on. A historical fact about these drivers is that their coats were often waterproofed with fish oil or birch tar. This made the fabric very stiff and heavy, but it meant that even if a blizzard hit, the driver stayed dry. A wet driver in -40 degrees is a dead driver. They had to be experts at staying dry. You can see the dark, slightly shiny look of his coat in the moonlight. It looks like it is made of stone rather than cloth. He's like a human fortress, standing guard over you and the horses while the world freezes around him. You take a moment of reflection. You watch the way the driver moves. Every few minutes, he shifts his weight or stamps his heavy boots against the wooden floor of his bench. He's doing this to keep his blood moving. He cannot stay perfectly still like you can. He has to stay active to keep his heart pumping warmth to his fingers. You realize that his job is very hard. He's not just sitting there. He's fighting a battle against the cold every single minute. You feel a deep respect for his strength. He's the reason you feel so safe and peaceful. The driver's hat is another amazing piece of gear. It is a large, round hat made of black sheepskin, called a papaka. The fur is very long and curly. It covers his ears, his neck, and most of his forehead. Only a small part of his face is showing. You can see the white frost on the edges of the fur where his breath has hit it. The hat is so thick that he probably cannot hear the wind at all. He only hears the ringing of the silver bells and the sound of the horses. It is like he is living in his own private, warm room, even though he is sitting in the middle of a frozen forest. Sometimes, the driver will take one hand off the reins and beat it against his chest. Thump, thump, thump. This is a common sight on the Russian winter roads. It is a way to wake up the fingers. Even with the best gloves in the world, the iron frost can make your hands feel like blocks of wood. But the driver never lets go of the reins with both hands. He is always in control. He knows that the horses are strong and that the icy ribbon can be slippery. He is the captain of the sleigh, and he takes his job very seriously. You notice a small leather bag hanging from his belt. This is where he keeps his tobacco and a small wooden pipe. In the 1800s, many drivers smoked to help them stay awake and to feel a little bit of heat near their faces. You see a tiny puff of grey smoke rise up from his collar and disappear into the night. The smell of the tobacco is faint and earthy. It blends with the smell of the horses and the pine trees. It is a very human smell of a world that feels very cold and empty. The driver turns his head for a second to look at the horses. He gives a low whistle, and the team moves a little closer together. He knows every inch of their harness. He knows which strap might be getting stiff and which bell is ringing the loudest. He is connected to the animals by the long leather reins. It is as if his own nerves travel down the leather and into the horses' mouths. They move as one single creature, the man, the wood, and the horses. It is a beautiful thing to see. You lean back and look at the sky again. The stars are so bright they almost look like they are vibrating. You feel a sense of wonder at how humans have learned to live in such a harsh place. By using the wool of sheep, the hair of camels, and the oil of fish, the driver has made himself stronger than the winter. He is a master of the night shift. As long as he is sitting up there on his high bench, you know that nothing can go wrong. The iron frost can try to get in, but it will never get past his many coats. The sleigh song of the bells continues, a steady, happy music that fills the dark. The runners whistle on the ice, and the horses' hooves drum on the hard snow. You feel the heavy bare fur settle around you, and you drift a little further into your sleepy dream. You are safe, you are warm, and the history watchman of the road is watching over you from his high, wooden throne. The journey goes on, and the night is full of magic. The sleigh is gliding through a very narrow part of the forest now. The trees are so close that their snowy branches almost touch the sides of the sleigh. The sleigh song of the bells is loud and bright, but suddenly the driver pulls on the reins and makes the horses slow down. He tilts his head to the side. Listening, you listen too. At first, you only hear the soft hiss of the runners. Then, from far, far away, you hear a sound that makes your skin prickle. It is a long, low, musical cry that rises and falls in the cold air. It is the howl of a wolf. In the 1800s, wolves were a real part of the Russian winter night. A historical fact about these animals is that they usually stay far away from people. They are shy and do not like the sound of the silver bells or the smell of the horses. However, on a very cold night, their voices carry 4 miles across the frozen snow. The howl you hear is not close. It is coming from a deep valley behind the next mountain. It sounds lonely and beautiful, like a singer performing in a giant, empty hall. It is a reminder that you are a visitor in a world that belongs to the creatures of the woods. You notice a micro-history detail that the driver uses to keep you safe. Hanging from the back of the sleigh is a long, thick rope made of braided straw and leather. It is called a volok. In the old days, drivers believed that if a wolf pack ever got too curious, the long rope trailing behind the sleigh would look like a snake or a trap. The movement of the rope bouncing on the snow would confuse the wolves and keep them from coming too close to the horse's legs. You look back and see the volok dancing in the moonlight, a dark line following you through the white powder. It makes you feel much better to know that the driver has thought of everything. You take a moment of reflection. You sit very still and wait to see if the wolf will howl again. The forest is perfectly quiet. Even the horses are standing still, their ears pointing toward the sound. You realize that out here, in the iron frost, everyone is connected. The wolves, the horses, the trees, and you are all part of the same cold night. You do not feel afraid. Instead, you feel a deep sense of wonder. The wolf is just another part of the night shift, looking for food and keeping its family warm in a hidden den. The sound is the true voice of the Russian wilderness. The driver gives a soft hey-hey to the horses. He doesn't want to stay still for too long. He knows that the sound of the bells is his best protection. As the horses start to move again, the ringing returns, filling the air with a happy, safe noise. The bells tell the wolves, "We are here, we are fast, and we are moving through." The fear fades away, replaced by the rhythmic drumming of the hooves. You feel the heavy bare furs pressing against you, and you realize how lucky you are to be in this warm wooden shell. You look at the shadows under the trees. Now that you have heard the wolf, the forest looks a bit different. You see shapes in the dark that you didn't see before. But then the moon comes out from behind a cloud, and you see that the shapes are just old stumps covered in snow or low-hanging branches. The moonlight is your friend. It turns the scary shadows back into a beautiful garden of ice. You take a deep breath of the cold air. It feels sharp and clean, like a drink of cold water from a mountain stream. The driver is moving the horses a little faster now. He wants to get past this narrow part of the forest and out into the open meadows again. You can feel the sleigh swaying from side to side as it follows the curve of the icy ribbon. The wind starts to whistle past your ears again, a low and steady sound. You pull your fur hat down a bit lower. The warmth of the soapstone is still there, a solid comfort at your feet. You feel like you are in a moving castle, protected by wood, fur, and the skill of the man on the high bench. You think about the wolf again. You imagine it standing on a high rock, its fur white with frost, watching your sleigh pass by in the distance. To the wolf, you must look like a fast-moving star, trailing a song of silver bells and a cloud of white steam. You are a mystery to the forest, just as the forest is a mystery to you. It is a fair trade. You give the forest your music, and the forest gives you its beauty and its secrets. The sleigh song becomes louder as the trees begin to thin out. You can see the wide, flat horizon again. The moon is still high, and the stars are still bright. The iron frost is still biting at the world, but you are winning the battle. You have heard the voice of the wild, and you are still moving forward. The journey is almost in its final hour, and you feel a sense of pride. You have braved the -40-degree night and the songs of the wolves. You lean back into the green velvet and close your eyes. The sound of the hooves on the hard ice is the only thing you hear now. Clack thud, clack thud. It is a strong, steady heartbeat. You feel a deep sleepiness starting to take hold. The fast air and the excitement of the Wolf have made you tired in a very good way. You let the rhythm carry you, knowing that the driver and the bells will keep you safe until the very end. The night is long, but it is a good night. The narrow path through the woods finally ends, and the sleigh bursts out onto a vast, flat plain. This is the open sea of the Russian winter. Without the trees to block the view, you can see for miles in every direction. The moon is so bright here that the snow looks like a sheet of glowing white metal. The driver looks back at you and gives a small, knowing nod. He knows that this is the best part of the ride. He shakes the leather reins and lets out a long, happy whistle. The horses have been waiting for this. They lean forward, their bodies stretching out low to the ground, and they begin to fly. The speed of the sleigh changes instantly. You are no longer moving at a steady trot. You are at a full gallop. The wind, which was a soft whisper in the woods, becomes a powerful roar. It hits your fur coat with a heavy thud, but the sable and the bear skin are like a wall. You feel the sleigh lift up on its silver runners. It feels like you are no longer touching the ground at all. You are gliding on the very top of the frozen crust, moving at 30 miles an hour. In the 1800s, this was the fastest a human being could ever travel. It feels like magic. A historical fact about this high-speed travel is that the Russian nobility used it to wash their minds. They believed that when you move this fast through the -40-degree air, all your small worries are blown away by the wind. They called this feeling skotchka. It was a way to feel the power of the land and the strength of the animals. You can feel it now, a rush of energy that makes your heart beat faster. The cold air stings your eyes if you look ahead, so you squint and watch the world go by in a silver blur. You notice a micro-history detail that only happens at this speed. Because the horses are running so fast, their heavy hooves are kicking up a constant spray of ice and snow. This spray is called snezhnaya pil, or snow dust. It doesn't fall back to the ground. It stays in the air behind the horses, forming a long, white tunnel that the sleigh moves through. You are sitting in the middle of a cloud of frozen crystals. Each crystal catches the moonlight, making the air look like it is filled with falling diamonds. It is a beautiful, shimmering world that only exists when the horses are at full speed. You take a moment of reflection. You lean your head back and look straight up at the stars. Because you are moving so fast, the stars seem to be dancing. The whole sky feels like it is spinning around you. You feel a sense of total freedom. There are no fences here, no roads, and no rules. There is only the white earth and the black sky. You realize that this is why people brave the iron frost. For these few minutes of perfect speed, the cold doesn't matter. The danger doesn't matter. You are a part of the wind. The driver is a master of this speed. He doesn't sit still. He moves his body with the sleigh, leaning into the corners to keep the runners flat on the ice. He's shouting to the horses now, calling them by their names. Serko, Pelko, Guliari. His voice is loud and strong, carrying over the roar of the wind. The horses respond by pulling even harder. The silver bells on the dug are no longer tinkling. They are ringing with a loud, constant chime that sounds like a victory song. Clang, 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 clang. It is the most exciting sound you have ever heard. You feel the vibration of the wooden frame beneath you. It is a steady, high-frequency hum. The oak wood is strong, and the iron runners are polished to a mirror shine. You can feel the friction heating the metal, just enough to keep you sliding perfectly. You look over the side and see the shadow of the sleigh racing along beside you. It looks like a dark ghost trying to keep up, but the horses are too fast. You are leaving everything behind: the forest, the wolves, the fire pits. You are moving toward the end of the night. The air is so cold now that it feels like a physical weight against your chest. You pull the bear furs up even tighter, so only your eyes are showing. The heat from the tea and the soapstone is still there, holding you in a warm embrace. You are a small, hot spark moving through a world of ice. You feel a deep sense of pride in the horses. They are not tired. They are full of life. Their muscles are hot and their breath is steaming, but they are running with joy. They were born for this open plain and this silver light. You close your eyes for a few seconds. The sound of the wind and the bells is so loud that it starts to feel like a kind of silence. Your mind drifts away from the earth. You feel like you are floating in space, moving between the stars. Then, the sleigh hits a small bump, and the light jar brings you back to the velvet seat. You laugh a little bit, the sound lost in the wind. This is the best New Year's Eve you have ever had. You are a traveler in time, experiencing the world as it was 100 years ago. The open sea of the plain begins to end. In the distance, you can see the first few lights of a small village. The driver begins to slow the horses, bringing them back down to a steady trot. The roar of the wind fades, and the world becomes quiet again. The sleigh song of the bells returns to its normal, rhythmic tinkle. You feel a little bit sad that the high speed is over, but your body is ready for a rest. You lean back into the furs, feeling the warmth return to your cheeks, and watch the tiny lights of the village get closer and closer. As the horses slow their pace, the vast, empty plain begins to change. You see small, dark shapes appearing through the silver mist of the moon. These are the houses of a tiny village, huddled together like a group of sheep trying to stay warm. The icy ribbon of the road leads you right through the center of the village. It is very late, long past midnight, and the world is asleep. But even in the middle of the night, a Russian village is never truly dead. You can see the signs of the night shift everywhere, a quiet life that carries on while the sun is away. The houses are built of thick, dark logs, and their roofs are covered in a mountain of snow that looks like white icing on a cake. There are no streetlights here, only the moon and the occasional glow from a window. As the sleigh glides past, you see a thin, steady line of grey smoke rising from every chimney. This is a micro-history detail of the village night. In Russia, the stove, or pek, is the heart of the home. It is a giant block of stone and clay that takes hours to heat up. Once it is hot, it stays warm all night long. The smoke you see is the breath of the house, telling you that the families inside are safe and warm in their beds, which are often built right on top of the big stone stove. A historical fact about these village nights is that the village elders often took turns walking the streets as night watchmen. As you pass the last house, you see a man wrapped in a sheepskin coat, so thick he looks like a ball of wool. He's carrying a wooden board and a small hammer. This is called a kolatushka. Every few minutes, he hits the board with the hammer clack, clack, clack. This sound tells the sleeping villagers that the watchman is awake and that there are no fires or thieves in the night. It is a lonely, rhythmic sound that blends in with the silver bells of your sleigh. The man gives a slow wave as you pass, his breath turning into a cloud in the -40-degree air. You take a moment of reflection. You watch the small, yellow glow of a single candle in a window. Who is awake in there? Maybe a mother tending to a baby, or an old man who cannot sleep, watching the moon. You feel a strange connection to them. You are a wealthy traveler in a velvet sleigh, and they are simple country people, but tonight, the iron frost makes everyone equal. You are all just humans trying to stay warm in a frozen world. The village feels like a very cozy, secret place, tucked away from the wind. The smell of the village is wonderful. It is a mixture of wood smoke, dried hay, and the faint, sweet scent of baking bread. Even at this hour, some of the village women are starting the morning shift, preparing the dough for the next day. The smell lingers in the air, mixing with the sharp scent of the pine trees. It makes you think of home and the warmth that is waiting for you at the end of the journey. You pull your bare furs a little tighter, feeling a deep sense of peace. The village is a small island of life in the middle of the White Sea. You notice how quiet the sleigh becomes as you move between the houses. The buildings block the wind, and the sound of the runners on the hard-packed village snow is a soft, muffled whir. The silver bells ring out with a clear, lonely tone that echoes off the wooden walls. You see a dog sitting on a porch, its fur white with frost. It doesn't bark, it just watches you with bright eyes as you glide by. Everything feels like it is moving in slow motion, like a dream that you don't want to wake up from. The driver is quiet too. He respects the sleep of the village. He keeps the horses at a steady walk, his eyes watching the dark corners for any patches of ice. He knows that the village road can be tricky, with hidden bumps and frozen puddles. You see the frost on his beard catching the light from a window, turning it for a second into a glowing orange fan. He looks like a part of the village itself, a worker of the night who understands the language of the silence. You look at the small wooden fences that line the road. They are almost buried in the snow, with only the top of the posts sticking out like little soldiers. You imagine the gardens that are sleeping under the white blanket, waiting for the spring sun to wake them up. For now, the world is at rest. You feel like a ghost moving through a quiet memory. The speed of the open plain is gone, replaced by a slow, thoughtful rhythm that matches the beating of your heart. As the sleigh reaches the edge of the village, the houses start to move further apart. The last house has a small wooden cross over the door, meant to protect the family from the spirits of the cold. You look back one last time and see the watchman's lantern swinging in the dark. The clack-clack of his hammer fades away, replaced by the whistle of the wind as you move back into the open fields. The village was a short, warm chapter in your story, and now you are heading back into the wild. The icy ribbon stretches out ahead of you once more, and the horses pick up their trot. You feel the heavy fur settle around you, and you drift a little further into your sleepy state. The warmth of the soapstone and the memory of the wood smoke keep you cozy. You are almost home now, and the night is reaching its most quiet point. You lean back against the green velvet and let the rhythm of the bells carry you toward the end of the night shift. As you leave the village behind, the night reaches its deepest point. This is the hour when the cold is most powerful, and the world seems to hold its breath. You notice a strange feeling on your face. When you try to blink, your eyes feel heavy, and there is a tiny, soft click sound. You reach up a gloved finger to touch your eyes and feel something hard and cold. These are ice lashes. In the -40-degree air, the moisture from your eyes and your breath has turned into tiny pearls of ice that have frozen onto your eyelashes. Every time you blink, these little ice beads touch each other. It is a micro-history detail of the iron frost that every Russian traveler knows well. It doesn't hurt, but it makes the world look a little bit blurry, as if you are looking through a curtain of diamonds. Your breath is also making a white crust on the soft sable fur of your collar. This frost is called inane. It is beautiful and delicate, looking like tiny white trees or feathers growing on your clothes. You are becoming a part of the frozen landscape yourself. You are no longer just a person in a sleigh. You are a creature made of fur and ice. A historical fact about this level of cold is that the Russian people used to say the Frost King was trying to kiss you. They knew that if you felt your skin going numb, you had to rub it immediately with a handful of soft snow. This sounds strange using cold snow to warm up, but the friction of the snow helps the blood come back to the surface. You feel a little nip on the tip of your nose, So you tuck your head deeper into the bare furs. The heat from your body is trapped inside the nest, and you can feel your own warm breath melting the ice on your collar. You are safe in your small world of warmth. You take a moment of reflection. You watch the way the horses' manes have turned completely white. The steam from their bodies has frozen into thick, white hair that looks like silver thread. They look like magical horses from an old legend, pulling you through a world of glass. You listen to the sound of the runners. On this part of the road, the snow is so cold it makes a high-pitched singing sound, shri shri. It is the sound of the metal molecules rubbing against the frozen water. It is a lonely but very beautiful song that only the night shift hears. The driver is also covered in frost. His sheepskin hat has a thick white rim, and his shoulders look like they have been dusted with flour. He doesn't move much now. He's saving every bit of energy to keep his heart warm. He looks like a statue carved from a block of ice, but you can see his eyes moving, watching the stars and the road. He's still the master of the icy ribbon. He knows that the coldest hour is also the closest hour to the morning. He gives a soft, low grunt to the horses, and they flick their frozen ears in response. You feel a deep, heavy sleepiness. It is not the kind of sleepiness you feel when you are bored. It is a peaceful, cozy feeling, like being wrapped in a huge, warm cloud. The rhythm of the sleigh, the song of the silver bells, and the steady beat of the hooves are like a giant's heartbeat. You feel very protected. The -40-degree wind is howling just outside the wooden walls of the sleigh, but it cannot get to you. You have your many layers of wool, your silk-lined furs, and your hot soapstone. You are winning the battle against the iron frost. You look at your hands inside the fur muff. You can feel the warmth of the small metal grelka box. It is a tiny, steady glow that reminds you of a small bird sitting in your palms. Everything about this night is a balance between the giant, cold outside, and the tiny, warm inside. You realize that humans are very clever. We found ways to turn the hair of animals and the heat of stones into a shield. You feel a sense of wonder at how quiet and still the world is. The trees are not moving. The wind has died down to a soft sigh. There is only you, the driver, and the horses moving through the silver dark. The frost on your lashes makes the moonlight break into 1,000 tiny rainbows. Every time a star flashes, you see a spray of color. It is like being in a dream world made of light. You lean your head back against the green velvet and let your eyes close for a few seconds. You are not afraid of falling asleep because you know the driver is there. You can feel the strength of the 3 horses through the floor of the sleigh. They are your brothers in the night, carrying you home through the ice. The smell of the night is very sharp now. It smells like ozone and frozen water. There is no longer any smell of wood smoke or horses. The cold has scrubbed the air clean of every scent. It is the smell of the very edge of the world. You take a slow, shallow breath, feeling the cold air tingle in your throat. It makes you feel very pure and very awake. Even though your body is so relaxed, you are a part of the night shift history, a traveler who has seen the iron frost face to face and lived to tell the story. The sleigh moves around a long, slow curve. The village is far behind, and the great palace is still a few miles ahead. You are in the quietest part of the journey. The silver bells on the harness ring out with a soft, steady tinkle-tinkle. It is a comforting sound that fills the empty space. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for this moment. The world is beautiful, the night is long, and you are tucked away in the heart of the Russian winter, safe and warm in your nest of bear fur. The night is so clear that the sky looks like a deep, black sea filled with glowing jewels. Now that you are far from the lights of the village and the forest shadows, you can see the stars in their full glory. In the -40-degree air, the stars, do not just sit there. They seem to pulse and throb with a sharp, white light. This is the magic of the Russian winter sky. Because there is no dust or heat in the air to make the light blurry, every tiny point of light is as sharp as a needle. You look up from your nest of fur and feel like you are looking into the very heart of the universe. A historical fact about these winter stars is that the Russian people used them as a giant clock. They knew exactly where the stars should be at midnight on New Year's Eve. The most important group of stars was the Great Bear, which you might know as the Big Dipper. In Russia, it was sometimes called the chariot. To the night shift workers, the position of the chariot told them how many hours were left until the sun would rise and end their long, cold watch. You look at the 7 bright stars above you and feel a sense of connection to those old travelers who looked at the same sky 100 years ago. You notice a micro-history detail about the stars that only happens on the coldest nights. Sometimes, when a very bright star is low on the horizon, it seems to change color, flashing from red to green to blue in a single second. This is called star scintillation. It happens because the cold air is bending the light like a prism. It looks like the stars are sending you a secret code in colorful flashes. You watch a bright blue star just above the tree line. It looks like a sapphire hanging in the air. It is a beautiful, quiet show put on just for you and the driver. You take a moment of reflection. You let your head rest against the back of the sleigh and stare straight up into the deep black space. You feel very small, but in a good way. The world of the palace, with its rules and its noise, feels like it belongs to another planet. Out here, there is only the vast sky and the white earth. You feel a deep sense of wonder. You realize that the iron frost is not just a challenge to survive. It is a key that opens a door to a more beautiful world. Without the cold, the stars would never look this bright, and the air would never feel this pure. The driver is watching the stars too, but for a different reason. He's using them to guide the horses. Even though there is a path, the wind sometimes blows the snow across the road, hiding the icy ribbon. When that happens, the driver looks up at the North Star. As long as he keeps that steady, white light on his left shoulder, he knows he is heading toward the palace. He is a master of the sky, a sailor on a sea of snow. You see him point a thick, gloved finger at a bright cluster of stars and whisper something to the horses. They seem to understand, shifting their path just a tiny bit. The silver bells on the Dugar are ringing with a soft, steady rhythm that matches the twinkling of the stars. It is a very peaceful music. You feel your eyes getting heavy again. The night shift is almost over, and your body is ready for sleep. But you don't want to miss a single second of this magic. You watch the way the starlight reflects off the ice on the side of the sleigh. The black lacquer paint looks like a mirror, showing you a blurry version of the sky moving along beside you. You pull the bare furs up even higher, until only your eyes are peeking out. The heat from your body has made the inside of your fur nest very cozy. You feel like a secret passenger in a world that doesn't know you are there. The stars are so far away and so cold, yet they feel like friends. They are the lamps of the night, keeping you company on the long road. You feel a deep sense of safety. With the driver on his bench and the stars in the sky, nothing can go wrong. The air is very still. The wind has stopped completely, leaving the forest and the fields in a perfect, frozen silence. The only sounds are the rhythmic clack-thud of the hooves and the high-pitched singing of the runners. It is a very lonely sound, but it is also very strong. It tells the world that life is still moving. Even in the middle of the iron frost, you feel a sense of pride. You are one of the few people awake to see this masterpiece of light and ice. You look at the horizon and see a faint, tiny change in the color of the sky. It is not the sun yet, but the very first hint of the morning. The stars at the edge of the world are starting to fade just a little bit. You feel a small pang of sadness. You want the night to last forever. You want to stay in this dream of silver and velvet, flying across the white world under the watchful eyes of the stars. But the horses know they are getting close to home, and they pick up their pace. The sleigh song becomes a little faster and more joyful. The silver bells ring out a new tune, a song of returning. You lean back and close your eyes for a moment, picturing the stars in your mind. You feel the heavy furs hold you tight, and you let the rhythm of the ride carry you forward. The stars are starting to go to sleep, but their light stays with you, a warm memory of the magic you found in the heart of the Russian night. The horses sense that the journey is nearly over. Their ears, once flicking back and forth to listen to the forest, are now pointed straight ahead. The icy ribbon of the road begins to widen, and you see the large stone pillars that mark the edge of the palace grounds. These pillars are covered in a thick layer of white frost, making them look like giant sticks of sugar. As you pass between them, the sleigh song of the bells changes once more. The sound is no longer lost in the vast, open plain. It bounces off the stone walls and the garden fences, becoming loud and bright. It is the sound of coming home. In the distance, you see the yellow glow of the palace gates. They are tall, heavy gates made of black iron, decorated with golden eagles. Even at this hour, the gatekeepers are working the night shift. They have heard the silver bells from a mile away, and they are ready. As the sleigh approaches, the heavy iron doors begin to swing open. They make a long, low creak that sounds like a giant waking up. The light from their lanterns spills out onto the snow, creating a golden carpet for the horses to walk on. You feel a sudden wave of warmth just looking at the lights. A historical fact about these palace gates is that they were never truly closed to the family, no matter how late the ride lasted. The gatekeepers would keep a small fire going in their stone hut all night long. This was part of the night shift that kept the great estates running. Their job was to watch the horizon for the flash of the torches or the sound of the bells. You see one of the men now, standing by the gate. He is holding a long wooden pole with a lantern on the end. He bows low as the sleigh glides past, the golden light reflecting off the shiny lacquer of the sleigh's body. You notice a micro-history detail as you enter the courtyard. The ground here has been swept clean by a team of workers, using brooms made of birch twigs. This is a special winter job, because the -40-degree cold makes the snow as dry as sand. It is easy to sweep away if you do it often. The courtyard is a perfect, flat circle of dark stone, surrounded by walls of white snow. The horses' hooves make a new sound here, a sharp, clear tap-tap-tap on the frozen stone. It sounds very elegant, like a drum roll at the end of a show. You take a moment of reflection. You look back at the gates as they slowly close behind you. The wild world of the forest, the howling wolves, and the open sea of the plain are now on the other side. You are back inside the walls of safety. You feel a strange mix of feelings. You are very happy to be back near the warmth, but you are also a little bit sad. The magic of the deep night is a secret that stays out there in the dark. You feel like you are carrying a piece of that magic with you, tucked inside your heavy furs. The palace looks different than it did when you left. The hundreds of windows are dark now, except for a few on the ground floor where the servants are waiting. The building looks like a sleeping giant made of stone and ice. The moonlight hits the glass of the windows, making them look like silver mirrors. You feel the sleigh slow down as it moves toward the main entrance. The driver pulls gently on the reins, and the horses come to a perfect, smooth stop right in front of the wide stone steps. The silence that follows is very deep. The sleigh song has ended. The whistling of the runners has stopped. The only sound is the heavy, tired breathing of the three horses. You see the giant clouds of steam rising from their backs, lit by the palace lanterns. They have done a wonderful job. They have carried you through the iron frost and back again without a single mistake. You reach out a gloved hand and pat the side of the sleigh. A small thank you to the wood and the iron that kept you safe. The driver stays on his high bench for a moment, letting out a long, slow breath. His beard is a solid block of white ice, and his many coats are stiff with frost. He looks at the palace door, and then back at you. He gives a small, tired smile. The night shift was long and cold, but it is finished. He has brought his passenger home. You see the gratitude in his eyes, and you feel a deep respect for him. He is the guardian of the road, the man who knows the secrets of the ice. A servant comes down the steps, carrying a heavy wool rug to throw over the horses. This is very important. After a long run in the cold, the horses' muscles must stay warm, so they do not get sick. The servant moves quickly, tucking the rug around the lead horse's neck. You watch the steam disappear under the thick cloth. The horses lower their heads, finally resting. The bells on their harness give one last, tiny clink as they settle into the silence. You sit for one more minute in your green velvet seat. You are not ready to move yet. You want to feel the weight of the bare furs and the heat of the soapstone one last time. You look at the stars above the palace roof. They are the same stars you saw in the forest, but here they look more like decorations than wild lights. You take a final deep breath of the sharp, cold air. It still tastes like ice and pine. You feel very peaceful and very lucky. The journey is over, and the warmth of the hall is waiting for you. You finally decide to move. It is a slow process because you are buried under so much weight. You push back the heavy bare fur rugs, and for the first time in hours, the -40-degree air touches your legs. Even though you are in the protected courtyard, the cold is still a shock. It feels like stepping into a pool of icy water. Your muscles feel a bit stiff from sitting still, but the heat from the soapstone has kept your feet limber. You stand up in the sleigh, and the green velvet seat pushes back against you. You feel tall and heavy in your many layers of wool and fur. You step out of the sleigh and onto the stone steps. Your Valenki boots make a solid, muffled sound on the cold rock. Thud, thud. As you walk toward the great wooden doors of the palace, you look back one more time. The driver is still there, his hand resting on the dugong of the lead horse. He looks like a part of the night that has stayed behind. You feel a wave of thanks for his steady hands and his sharp eyes. Then, the big doors swing open, and you step inside. The change is incredible. It is like walking into a warm hug. The air inside the hall is thick, sweet, and very hot. It smells of beeswax candles, expensive perfumes, and the glowing logs of the great fireplace. After the sharp, thin air of the icy ribbon, this air feels heavy in your lungs. It takes a moment for your eyes to adjust to the bright light. There are hundreds of candles burning in the gold chandeliers, their flames steady and still, with no wine to bother them. You feel the iron frost leaving your body instantly. A historical fact about these palace halls is that they were kept at a very high temperature during the winter. Because the walls were made of thick stone, once they got warm, they stayed warm like the village stoves. The nobility liked their homes to feel like a summer day, even when it was freezing outside. You can see the steam rising off your fur coat as the ice on the sable hairs begins to melt. Small drops of water fall onto the shiny wood floor, looking like tiny diamonds that have finally turned back into water. A servant steps forward to help you. This is a micro-history detail of the palace night shift. The servant carries a silver tray with a small glass of Spuyten. This is a traditional Russian winter drink made of hot water, honey, and spices like ginger and cloves. It is much lighter than the strong tea you had in the forest. You take the glass, and the heat feels wonderful through your silk gloves. You take a sip, and the spicy honey warms your throat. It is the perfect welcome home. You take a moment of reflection. You stand in the middle of the grand hall and look at your reflection in a large, gold-framed mirror. You look like a different person. Your face is rosy from the cold, and there is still a tiny bit of frost in your hair. Your heavy coat is damp, and your boots are dusty with snow. You look like a traveler who has come back from a great adventure. You realize that you have seen things tonight that the people sleeping in their warm beds will never know. You have seen the diamond dust, heard the wolves, and felt the speed of the open sea. The servant helps you take off your heavy shuba. As the weight of the bear and sable is lifted from your shoulders, you feel light, almost as if you could float away. You move your arms and legs, feeling the blood rushing back into your skin. It is a tingly, prickly feeling that makes you want to smile. You walk toward the large stone fireplace at the end of the hall. The fire here is huge, with logs as thick as a man's leg. The flames are orange and blue, dancing with a happy, roaring sound. You stand in front of the fire and hold out your hands. The heat is so strong it almost stings, but it feels better than anything else in the world. You look at the paintings on the walls, pictures of summer gardens and green forests. They look beautiful, but you know a secret now. You know that the winter forest is just as beautiful in its own quiet, silver way. You feel a deep sense of satisfaction. You have faced a great Russian winter, and you have come back to the warmth. The palace is very quiet. The party is over, and the guests have gone to their rooms. The only sounds are the crackle of the fire and the soft footsteps of the servants. You feel a heavy, wonderful sleepiness spreading through your body. The fast air of the ride has done its work. Your mind is clear and your heart is calm. You look at the grand staircase that leads to your bedroom. It looks like a long road of white marble. You are ready to follow it to the end. You take one last look at the door. Behind that wood is the iron frost and the dark forest. You think about the driver taking the horses back to the stable, and the gatekeepers closing the heavy iron gates. The night shift is finishing its work. You feel a deep respect for all of them. They are the ones who make the magic possible. You turn away from the fire and start to walk up the stairs, your feet feeling light and warm in your wool socks. The journey is over, but the memory of the bells and the moon will stay with you forever. You are safe, you are warm, and the new year has begun in the most beautiful way possible. You reach the top of the stairs and look down at the glowing hall one last time. The world is at peace. You walk slowly down the long, quiet hallway toward your bedroom. The floors are covered in thick carpets that swallow the sound of your steps. The palace is hushed, wrapped in the deep peace of the early morning. You reach your door and push it open. Inside, the room is glowing with a soft, orange light. A small fire is still burning in the grate, and a single lamp has been left on for you. The air is warm and smells of lavender and old books. It is the perfect place to end your long night. You sit down on the edge of your large, soft bed. The mattress is filled with goose feathers, and it feels like sitting on a cloud. You pull off your thick wool socks and feel the warmth of the room on your bare feet. It is a wonderful feeling to be free of all those heavy layers. You feel light and relaxed, as if your body has finally let go of all the tension from the iron frost. You look at your hands. They are no longer cold or red. They are warm and steady. A historical fact about these royal bedrooms is that they often had bed warmers placed inside the sheets before the person arrived. This is a micro-history detail of the night. A bed warmer is a metal pan with a long handle, filled with hot coals from the main fire. A servant would slide it between the linen sheets to chase away the chill of the room. You slide your feet under the heavy silk duvet and feel that lingering, gentle heat. It is like the bed is welcoming you home. You lay your head back on the large, soft pillows and let out a long, happy sigh. You take a moment of final reflection. You close your eyes and listen to the silence of the room. But in your mind, you can still hear the sleigh song of the silver bells. You can still feel the rhythmic clack-thid of the horses' hooves on the ice. The memory of the ride is so strong that you almost feel like the bed is swaying from side to side, just like the sleigh did on the open plain. You realize that you have traveled through a world that few people ever see. You have been a part of the night shift, a witness to the secret beauty of the frozen earth. The fire in the grate pops one last time, a small, friendly sound that breaks the stillness. You watch the shadows of the flames dancing on the ceiling. They look like the branches of the pine trees you passed in the dark. You feel very safe and very protected. The -40-degree wind is still out there, howling around the stone corners of the palace, but it cannot reach you here. You have seen the stars, heard the wolves, and felt the bite of the diamond dust. You have survived the iron frost, and now you earned your rest. Your breathing becomes slow and deep. The warmth of the room is wrapping around you like a cocoon. You think about the driver, now probably sleeping in his own warm bed in the stables, and the horses resting under their heavy rugs. The work of the night is done. The new year has begun with a journey of light and sound. You feel a sense of gratitude for the history you have lived through tonight. You are part of a long line of travelers who have found peace in the middle of the Russian winter. The world is starting to turn from black to a very soft grey. The morning is coming, but you do not need to see it. You have seen the best part of the day already. You have seen the midnight moon and the silver landscape. You feel a deep, heavy calm in your heart. The dream of the sleigh ride is fading into a real dream, and you are ready to let it take you away. You pull the duvet up to your chin, feeling the softness of the silk, and let your eyes close for the last time tonight. The air in the palace is still and warm, a gentle contrast to the sharp world you left behind. The journey through the ice and the stars has come to an end, and you are tucked away in safety. You can feel the heaviness of sleep pulling at your limbs, a kind and welcome weight that tells you the watch is over. The silence of the room is a soft blanket, holding you close as the last echoes of the silver bells fade into the distance. You are no longer a traveler of the road, but a traveler of dreams, moving into a deep and peaceful rest where the cold can never follow. Everything is quiet, everything is still, and you are perfectly at home. The sun is rising, the gates are opening, the watch is ended,